Welcome to the Blackout Show, presented by the Guillen Grid, a show about the Chicago White Sox baseball, the good, the bad, the ugly. We'll debate what's working and what's not on the south side of Chicago. It's old school versus new school baseball. And most importantly, we're keeping all the receipts.
Yo, what is up, everybody? It's Gonzo here. Tonight, OJ, Justin, you guys are joining the show with me. Slavko's taking the night off.
Wow.
I know. But
he's a busy man. When you're good at what you do, that's what happens.
But we have one stellar gentleman joining us really soon, and that will be Dan Evans. But guys, we saw some news within this weekend, that they're beginning their cuts with sending Oscar Colas down to the minors with a couple other names, and we'll get to that in a bit. But Justin, I want to hear your thoughts with not continuing the development with Colas during camp right now.
I wish I could say I was surprised, but I'm not. I mean, one of the few highlights he gave us last year, especially on the defensive end, he gave us a rocket throw that he couldn't even get the out on. What we're witnessing right now is the fact of the matter. You got guys coming in from the age of 23 to 25 that's not able to be an everyday Major League Baseball player. There are some technical issues in him going about his business on a day-to-day basis to where it's not on a consistent level. We've seen that when his production dropped the first, let's just say the first real drought he had. We've seen that. Small stuff like taking your time in the batter's box. This is Rob Manfred's league. For the first time in the history of baseball, there's a clock. So you already have to put yourself in an automatic rhythm. If you're not ready to hit, you're screwed. You're a rookie that's not ready to hit, you're getting sent back. Period. And it's not like he is a Luis Arias to where he could do the little things to keep you on a roster. No, if Oscar Colas ain't throwing anybody out or hitting the ball over somebody's fence or into your gap, where there's no spot for him on the roster. So I'm not surprised, Gonzo, at all.
Go ahead, Junior.
I just wanted to laugh. By the way, Luis Arias, the only thing that he can do is hit because he can't run, can't field, can't do anything. And that's the importance of the best part that you made in that comment is that if you get hits and you hit over 300, you'll find yourself.
You'll stay in the lineup.
You'll stay in the lineup. You know what? I'm gonna be honest right here because it's a two-part problem, and I'm going to first address the one for Oscar Colas, regardless of the Chicago White Sox being the team that he plays for. Wake-up call time right now for him. This is a difference from him making millions of dollars and having generational money to being a guy that had a lot of potential and made some money, but is going to be one of those guys that we're going to say that he's a bust. They used to call him the Cuban Ohtani. Okay, this guy turned down $15 million in Japanese baseball. And if he doesn't get his act straight, he'll end up in Japan once more in Asia because he is a poor version right now of Dayan Visadio, another Cuban.
Oh my God!
He wasn't bad when you look at his numbers. But here's the problem with Oscar, and this is a problem that we see in Major League Baseball and analytics. The fantasy baseball fans out there don't see this. He doesn't play good defense. His defense has not improved. We cannot put him in the Andrew Vaughn list because that wasn't his position and blah, 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 blah. Oscar knew was going to be a right fielder. We did not see great defensive play by him in the outfield or improvement. That was a negative on him to try to make this team. When Pedro Grifol, who I don't think is a big fan of Oscar Colas, by the way, meaning he could have been. But when he says this team's going to be more athletic, more defensively, going to put the ball in play more, those are all knocks on Oscar. So he knew that what he had to do. I was surprised that he didn't play winter ball, okay, to try to improve on those skills going into spring training, because he should have known that he needed to go into the spring training when he saw the roster moves to go and make this team, because it wasn't a guaranteed spot. So he went from a spot being guaranteed to him on a team that was supposed to win the division to them cutting them early. Enough on Cola's side. From an organization standpoint, you can see it as a positive or a negative. The White Sox really don't care what MLB baseball thinks about Oscar Colas. What I'm thinking right now is Chris Getz is thinking that's the old regime. And if there's a franchise out there that wants to trade for Oscar Colas at the value that he has now, we'll have conversations. If he develops into the player that we once thought that he might be, he'll find himself playing. But I'm not going to sit here and hinder the development of potentially other players I do see here in the future, okay, because of players that fit more of the Chris Getz era of baseball. They didn't care, because if I would have been the GM, to be honest with you, and it would have been more of a team decision, I would have let Oscar Colas make the big league team just to save face and say, hey, we still believe in him. We're only going to face him against the righties because he's only had 245 at-bats in 72 games. Let's give guy a chance. So it's like a negative on both sides where both sides need to kind of figure it out, because Oscar, from a playing standpoint, and the Chicago White Sox basically told all of Major League Baseball, hey, we don't think that this guy's good enough to make a team that right now, if they win 70 games, I think that everybody's going to think, wow, that was a great season of development into the Chris Getz, year 2, year 3, year 4. So that was an interesting one. I was not surprised, though, about the Brian Ramos one, and I wanted to bring it up for Gonzo. And I saw that they already put a double A. They didn't, Colson Montgomery, everybody else didn't get a sign. Brian Ramos got a sign double A. So his clock is like, Gonzo might be married, have kids by the time Brian Ramos is up in everyday third base. I was surprising, though. But, yeah, I was excited because I knew that was going to affect Gonzo when they put option 2 AA right off the bat, not even AAA team. So,
for the record, I did say 2025. For
you
Brian
did?
Ramos. Yes.
Okay.
However, we'll get to that in a bit. Guys, I can guarantee you a spot on our guest list tonight, and that is Dan Evans. He has spent 20 seasons here in Chicago and a former GM of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Gentlemen, let's welcome Dan Evans to the Blackout.
What's up, guys? I even wore a black shirt, so I would be in vogue tonight.
Yeah. Good to have you on, Dan. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, Justin. Thank you.
Now, we opened up the show apparently with a cloudy forecast. It's all doom and gloom with the White Sox. Apparently, let's just take the boss goggles off for a second, Dan. What should we expect as White Sox fans going into 2024? Because everybody's looking and trying to put on the GM suit and trying to put together this fantasy team. What should we expect in your opinion, Dan?
Justin, I think expectations are the thing that just destroy most teams. I think when you put unfair expectations on a club that you can't meet, I think it destroys the credibility of the franchise.
Yeah.
They're going to be a bad team. I think they're going to be the worst team in the American League. In the worst division in baseball, they're going to come in last place. Their pitching staff's going to be poor. Their farm system's in the bottom third. I think the fans are going to speak with their feet this year. There was a big attendance drop last year, and I think there'll be another one this year. And I think part of the problem is they're not really clearly defined what they're doing and how they're going to do it. And I think having grown up in that city, having worked there for 20 years, I think the city accepts game plans, strategy, if it's articulated, if it's consistent. Look at the Cubs. The Cubs did it really well. But I think part of the problem the last 2 or 3 years is I think the White Sox are somewhat rudderless. And I think that they're not clearly defined. But I think their biggest problem is got a lot of players who are edging towards free agency. They still have Cease on their club. He's probably gone by the deadline. So I think a bad club coming out of the gate will probably get worse over the course of the season, and they don't have players to come up and inject some enthusiasm, some talent, which is what a good farm system does at this time of a franchise's transition. Sorry,
My
Justin.
heart hurt. No, my heart actually hurts. It literally hurts, Dan. But I do thank you for your honesty.
Well,
So
I just think it's really important, you know. I mean, I'm a Blackhawks fan. Okay, I've been a Blackhawks fan since the three of you were born, and I go into every game knowing they're probably going to lose, but I know their game plan.
Yeah.
You know, I know what they're doing. The problem is, I think too many times there aren't a lot of facts thrown out at this stage of a franchise because you just don't like to tell people you're not going to be very good. But I'm here to tell you they're not going to be very good.
Oh man.
One thing I think, Dan, that fans need to know, and this is something that's different from the Kenny and Rick Hahn regime, that Rick kind of changed, which I think that it's very new to the fans with Getzy. And that is that Kenny Williams, for better or for worse, in the years prior to Ozzie being there, and all the years that Ozzie was there, Kenny was going for it every single year. And when I say better or worse, sometimes they probably shouldn't have gone for it. And their plan was like, we're going to win it no matter what. So that was something that he succeeded with. But then again, it hurt him in the back end. I think that White Sox are used to that. I think, though, that Chris Getz, and I think because they've lost so recently in the last couple of years that fans don't expect it, I'm expecting that Chris Getz, regardless of what's going on outside, he has a plan. And that's what I wanted to ask you about. When you're a general manager, meaning, and you just come into this certain situation, obviously there's a plan that you project to the fans, but then there has to be the internal plan. Do you think Getz is thinking, I have more runway than people expect them to do it, and he's trying to build something that's just not one season and actually success for multiple years to come, the way that he's built out already the front office, which I think is an A+ for the people that he was brought in to help him run the team?
That's a great question, Ozzie. I think, you very seldom have the public plan and the internal plan mirroring each other. I mean, you just some things you just can't say. But I think the most important thing you do is not the public plan, but the internal plan. Everybody in your scouting staff, your player development staff, all of your front office people, your marketing and sales people, your broadcasters, everybody has to be on the same page as far as where you are as a franchise. Who fits for you in 2024? And if he doesn't, why not? And be able to articulate that internally. In Chris's case, he doesn't have any pressure to win this year. That's for sure. And this is a great year for him too to articulate that. The problem is, I don't think, and obviously I don't live in Chicago, so I don't hear the Chicago spin on a daily basis, but I do pay attention. And I just haven't heard them clearly, publicly articulate their game plan. And I think White Sox fans are pretty darn smart. And I think what happened last year when they drew 1.7 million, it was their way of speaking with their feet. And they just said, this is not going to work. We're not going to come see a team lose 100 games. This year's team, arguably has a chance to lose just as many games.
Oh my God.
And I think one of the problems you've got is that there isn't immediate hope. And that's something that is an easier sell, Ozzie. So I think the internal discussion is imperative. I did that everywhere I went. And it's important because every decision you make at a game, at your desk, on the phone, is based on that strategy.
And it looks like the only hope is plans of a new stadium than the product on the field. So, but Dan, you've been around baseball for 4 decades at least. And let me just ask you this. If you got your first gig would you start fresh at manager, or would you keep familiarity going to begin?
Super question. It would depend if I knew the individual. I think one of the moments you have as a new general manager is you get to do a lot of things that ordinarily you can't do. You get to move old contracts. You get to move former draft choices, people that were part of the remnants of the previous organization. And I've done that a couple times. And you have a little bit of a honeymoon period where the owner, the media, the fans allow you to do some things you ordinarily wouldn't do. I believe Chris knows Pedro from his Royals days. And I think as a result, there's a pre-existing relationship. And I think subsequently, I know Pedro very well. I worked with Pedro with the Mariner organization. He was the minor league director. He was the field coordinator. I was a special assistant to the GM, and I got to know Pedro extremely well. So my guess is that Getz and Grifol have a long-standing relationship. But Gonzo, the one thing that you can do as a GM, if you don't have trust in that person, regardless of who the person is, you can make that move initially, and people look at it and say, he wasn't hired on your ledger. The problem, Gonzo, you probably don't get more than one, maybe two of those, because most people don't give you that sort of runway. So as a result, if he's staying with Pedro right now, he might get a chance to hire one more if that ever comes up. But after that, it's suspect.
So, Dan, you talked about having players on the roster that captivates the fans, automatically generate that attendance, right? 2003 with the Dodgers in the 6th round, 181st overall pick. You drafted a phenom. Now, nobody knew he was going to be what he turned into. But Matthew Kemp, let me tell you something, Dan. He captivated me on this side of the country. I was literally paying money I didn't have for MLB TV just to see him back cleanup from 2008 to 2012. My question to you, Dan, is we got a guy in center field that's kind of good. Do you see any comparisons as far as ceiling in regards to Luis Robert and Matt Kemp?
That's a super question. I think this game is entertainment. And I think when you lose that focus, you've kind of lost the very fabric of the sport. People have so many options today, whether it's streaming, whether in a city like Chicago, you have hundreds of things to do on a nightly basis. You have to give people something that they can't get enough of, that they want to gravitate to. Even if the team's win-loss record is not good. An example, Connor Bedard. I watch every Blackhawks game because I want to see Bedard do something nobody else has done. I think one of the problems in sports is a lot of times people lose the entertainment concept because candidly, it's what the game is all about. Why do we love Ohtani, Acuna? Why do we love J-Rod? There are so many guys in the game today that are fun to watch. And I think more than ever, we're becoming fans of individual players, more so teams. And that has not been the case in baseball for an elongated period. Now, I look at Robert and I see a great player, but I see a guy who at his age, with his walk rate, his strikeout rate, is probably who he is. I don't know that there's going to be a lot more increase in performance, but he's a darn good player. Yeah. He's a guy in a position player in the middle of the diamond, athletic with power. Justin, a guy you come to see play. You turn on the game to watch him play. The problem is on that team, there aren't a lot of those guys. Yeah. And as a result, very honestly, there's a lot of teams don't think that way. I think in the White Sox case, it's going to come back to haunt them a little bit because they've got some guys who are, borderline underperforming going into this year. Guys that you had much higher expectations about. And for me, at least, I'm still a fan after 44 years in the game. I am a fan. I love watching a game in person, streaming on TV, doesn't matter. And I like watching guys that are special. So I'll watch a White Sox game to watch him play. But if he's not in the lineup, who am I there to watch? Very candidly, unless Dylan Cease is on the mound, I don't really have a whole lot to watch.
So Dan, I would like you either to put a grade or maybe just some analysis here of Getz's first offseason, and just to give you a little refresher of the offseason. So he made a trade for, with Bauer, sending him to Atlanta, gets Shoemaker, Schuster, Soroka, Lopez. They signed Stassi as a backup. They get your boy from the Pacific, Fetty. They actually dropped Cronin and Houston picked him up. I'm just throwing that in there. And then they made 2 trades before the spring training began, with sending Gregory Santos to Seattle for Beroya and Deloach they just sent on to the minors. And then Christian Mania they traded for Dominic Fletcher. That's been the offseason so far.
Yeah, and it really doesn't move the needle hardly at all. The trade with the Braves was a couple of non-tenders coming the White Sox way. I mean, candidly, that's what it was. Soroka has a chance to be okay. His injury history with the Bravos just made him a guy they couldn't re-sign it at his salary. I think his additions in the front office and I think his additions in the system are the bigger story, because it's part of your decision-making process. I know when I came into LA, my first offseason, I made my internal roster moves first, and then I made my personnel moves. I brought people like Kim Ng, AJ Preller, Bill Bavasi, John Bowles, Joey Malfitano, George Genovese. I hired about 6 big league managers. I hired a bunch of people to help me with my decision making. Chris hasn't been on the big league scene for very long, so he's going to need people who have been there, done that. And I think he's got a very difficult task. I mean, it's a team that has a long way to go until they get respectable again. But I think his initial hires have been quite good. Not only talented people, but good people. And you need to bring in people who have been from different backgrounds, Gonzo. The White Sox have been insular for 30 years. It's one of the reasons why I left, because I wanted to be a part of another group and not be surrounded by the same thoughts and the same philosophies. And bringing people in from other organizations really helps your turnaround and helps your growth, because people don't want to hear, we've always done it this way, or we've done it this way. They're not going to hear that real well, because they're going to say, well, I won a World Series, and that's not how we did it. And I think, as someone once said to me, people who come in with jewelry on the right hand tend to get the room once in a while. And, when they say something, feel something, it carries a different weight. I think the White Sox are terribly in need of new voices, new thoughts, new processes, because it's simply not working the way it is right now.
Yeah, and I wanted to add, because you just brought up Cease, before you answer that question of mine. I want to bring him up. It's a 2-pronger question I have for you.
Mm-hmm.
How has the Cease situation been dealt in your eyes to this point? And also, my second part to that is, how would you go about a deal or an extension going forward? And just keep in mind, I was looking at the cap for 25, and at this moment it starts at $98 million of payroll, but they can cut it down to $46 million, a $46 million payroll with club options if they cut some guys. So with that in mind, how would you answer it?
Clearly, in today's environment, he has a tremendous amount of value. He's a 4+ player, so he's a free agent at the end of 25. You're going to have to make a decision on him by the end of this year, or else as a 5+ player, he's going to be $25 to $30 million in arbitration if he has anything like the year he had in 22. I think they're at a crossroads with Cease right now. You either make a long-term commitment to him, and only the club really knows the intricate things about a player. They know his makeup. They know his medical history. They know what he'll be like if he gets a big deal, an elongated deal. Clearly, one of the better arms in the game. He would have enormous value on the trade market. And one of the reasons he would is he's a shorter term guy than some of the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year deals that we're seeing fairly regularly on the market right now for elite pitchers. The problem with Cease, though, he didn't have a good year last year. He took a step back from where he was in 22. So I'm sure a lot of clubs are hearing, I would say, the demands of the White Sox and going, I did like him in 22. I didn't like him as much in 23. Part of the White Sox hopes has to be that he comes back and has a ginormous year. Because if he does, then they get a chance to make a really fun call on, is this guy my long-term guy? Or is this a guy that I max out his value? The problem, guys, in late July, he's got 12 or 13 starts. Then he has the following year of control. So you'll have some value. It's not going to be the value it would have been this offseason because, that was another 20 starts that they could have had. So his value won't be as great, but as we move forward incrementally, if he pitches well, his value will start creeping up to the point where they can get something good for him. I just think, it's going to be hard for this whole situation because I think we all thought he would be gone because they expressed that as much. They didn't hide that they were shopping him. And for a player, that's a very difficult thing to go through. I want to see how they manage this moving forward.
And it's unfortunate that because there's a lot that goes into those numbers with the team aspect behind it as well, with defense, with it being bottom of the league. Because it really overshadows the fact that Cease has gone the past 3 years of 200 strikeouts plus, and he's one of 8 pitchers in the game to do that. So it's you were thorough about that answer.
It's one of the pluses, Gonzo, that he has. He brings dominant stuff. Mm-hmm. He's not entirely dependent on his defense like a lot of pitchers are. So I think if you're a dreamer, and I've always been one as a personnel guy, you think about that guy on your club, and if he's plugging in as a 2 or a 3 on your already competitive club, you get pretty geeked about a guy like him because the ball's not in play a whole lot. And, I love guys who have great command, who throw a lot of ground balls, but late in the year in the postseason, I'd rather have dominance. I'd rather have the guy who can throw the ball by somebody, who can get a strikeout in the 4th inning to get out of a 2nd and 3rd jam. That's what Cease brings to each start. And I think if you're a club and you're dreaming about the postseason, that's what you're looking for in 24. You're looking for, if I add this guy in late July, can he come in and dominate for me for 2 to 3 months?
So you talk about getting ready for the postseason, and then earlier in Gonzo's question, you brought up A.J. Preller and Kim Ng. Just isolating those 2 individuals, Dan, look at what Kim done in Miami, turning them not only into a pitching factory, but they've got a manager in-house to where the lineup puts together consistent contact, and now they're playing fundamental baseball 6 to 7 days a week. Turn it over to A.J. Preller out west, who's had the pocketbook open and had some stuff happen. Guys got to move positions, stuff like that. It happens. You're not going to buy a World Series all the time. But look, even throughout his tragedy, he was able to draft a guy like Jackson Merrill, make sure Ha-Sung Kim could move around the diamond just in case I have to move the franchise player from a position of shortstop into right field. I'm not losing any value there. Was able to re-ink Manny Machado. I'm not going to lose the Blake Snell deal. Like, at a certain point, Dan Evans, I have to give you credit because you are responsible for what's going to usher in the next generation of excellence of suits and ties in my game.
Well, that's kind. But, I think the field manager only has 26 players.
Yeah.
And he really doesn't have much say into those guys joining his ball club. He gets to pick from those 26 who's his starting 10, and let's go, let's play. I think it starts with the international scouts, with the area scouts, with the front office staff, assembling a team that plays the game the way the manager and the general manager play. And I'll give you a little insight, guys, that I learned through the years that I wish I would have known a little earlier in my career. It doesn't matter what your philosophy is as a general manager. It matters what the manager's philosophy is. Because if you go acquire a guy and let's say you love a platoon situation, but your field manager likes to play guys every day, you load up your bench with guys who aren't going to see the field. What you need to do is, in tandem with your manager, bring guys in through your scouting staff, through trades, through waiver claims, through signings all over the world that fit what you're trying to accomplish. Just think about some of the teams who are elite. Look at the Braves. The Braves have gamers that play every game. I mean, those guys are durable athletes that play literally all the time. The Astros are a contact-oriented ball club. The Rays pitch to command. They pitch to game plans. They have terrific feel for analytics. Teams take on a personality, a philosophy. Look at the Dodgers. Why does Mookie Betts go to shortstop from second base, from right field? Because that's who Mookie Betts is as a person. When you bring in people of character, people who are all on the same page, guys, it's so much easier to fix things because your choices reflect your philosophy on a more consistent basis. I mean, think about this. Here's a White Sox team that just lost Anderson. They really don't have a shortstop to replace him right away. I mean, they've got a stopgap Band-Aid. Moncada can be a free agent at the end of the year. You take a look at, Maldonado could be a free agent. There's a situation where Jimenez could be a free agent. You need to have players that are ready as options to come in and step in. That's your job as a general manager. That's your job as an organization, because everybody in baseball can see the landscape and they can see when free agency, when arbitration, when age is going to eliminate a guy. That's the biggest challenge you have as a personnel guy, is being ready as a team when the inevitable comes along.
I got one more White Sox question. We talked about expectations before, Dan. My guy, Andrew Vaughn, was drafted, and he had some big first base shoes to fill, especially in regards to this organization. Me personally, I don't see Andrew Vaughn as the whole cake. I think he's really good icing. 22 home runs, 70 RBIs. I can do a lot with that. Do you think the White Sox made a mistake, not at drafting Vaughn, but not putting enough superior talent around him to where you don't have to necessarily dump expectations on him? You don't have to worry about him being the next Konerko. He could just be the real Vaughn.
Yeah, I was part of the trade for Konerko. So
you don't say.
Paulie's character for me is what made Paul Konerko a great player. An elite hitter, but even more elite character makeup. But here's the problem, is that you can't expect Vaughn to be Konerko. Konerko's one of the best players of his generation. I mean, he hit 435 home runs. I mean, that's a very short list.
Mm-hmm.
There's been 23 guys play in the big leagues, and not too many of them have 400 plus home runs. I think in Vaughn, you've got a good player, not a great player, and there's nothing wrong with being a good player. It's just when he's not surrounded by elite talent, he becomes magnified because Justin, suddenly you want him to be more than he's capable of doing. One of the challenges I've always had in my career is expecting more out of guys when in fact that's wrong. That puts way too much pressure on them. As Ozzie Jr. knows, these guys are humans and they hear, see, read everything about themselves. I mean, they like to tell you they don't, but they all do. And when they start hearing expectations that are absurdly high, as a player once said to me, those scoreboard lights get brighter when you're not playing well. So, Andrew Vaughn, terrific player. I like him. But if you expect Vaughn to be Abreu, you expect expect him to be Konerko, Frank Thomas, he's going to let you down, and it's not his fault. You're the one putting the expectations out for him. I think part of the problem is when you don't have superior talent on the field, your average talent gets, for me, under a microscope, and they look like they're failing when in fact they're just playing up to their level.
Well, okay.
Dan, I got some MLB questions for you now that we're out of the White Sox realm here.
Okay.
Got a two-pronger, another one for you. How could you fix the free agent market in the MLB right now? And also, do you foresee Ohtani's deferment contract affecting MLB going forward as well?
Well, let's take them one at a time. The Ohtani contract tells the story of Ohtani, a complete team player who just wants to win. And I think one of the hidden parts of the Ohtani contract, Gonzo, is he has a clause that if the ownership or general manager change for the Dodger organization, he can opt out. He's buying into the Dodgers and the way they do things. And I mean, I love Dave Roberts. He's one of my favorite people in the world. I traded for him. I just love him. He's a great guy. When you have someone like Ohtani who wants to win, and I mean, I've known this guy since he was a senior in high school. That's all he wants to do is win. And he was thwarted in Los Angeles with the Angels on a team that should have been a heck of a lot better than they were. But here's the problem. A lot of people look at his deferral and go, that's not good for the game. It doesn't mean that that's the way the game is going to go, because both sides have to agree on that. If the player wants to do deferral and the club is in favor of deferral, you can do it. But if one party does not, it's not going to happen. And the collective bargaining agreement is collectively bargained. As Tony Clark said when it occurred, it's one of the options that a team has. Gonzo, it allows the Dodgers to surround Ohtani with players like Yamamoto, with players that they added in the offseason and that they'll add again. So I think it's actually great for the game that the Dodgers found a way to add the greatest talent we've ever seen and give themselves more options. Now, when you talk about the free agent market, if the four of us go to a restaurant and we get to order anything off the menu, we probably order 4 different items. Okay? Agents work just like we would in that restaurant. They have their own philosophies, their own styles. What we had this year was 4 or 5 elite free agents were represented by the same person. And in a market that was explosive at times, confusing at others, he chose to wait. And, when I first started, the game had a deadline in the offseason. You had to make your moves by about the 3rd week of December. It was good and bad. Now there are no deadlines. So we have players out there that are candidly darn good players, unsigned in mid-March. Really hard for a starting pitcher to be ready for opening day. It's only 2.5 weeks away. So I think, Gonzo, what we have here is if you choose to make that decision as a player, that's your representative. As a representative, that's your player. You know, maybe they were overstating their number. Maybe there were things on their medical that people didn't like. Maybe there were just bad fits. The other thing to think about, there's some serious problems throughout the game right now because of the television contracts of some of the regional franchises. They just don't have the cash flow that they anticipated 4 and 5 years ago. If you look, some of these teams have really knocked down their spending as a result because they're not sure where the money's going to be going. I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying that's wrong, but it's real. And the landscape for some teams have changed. You know, I don't think it's good for the game when the Cy Young Award winner isn't signed on March 11th. But you know what? That's where we are today. I think it's great for the game that Yamamoto, Ohtani got what they got because I think it's great for the sport for them to be in a market that everybody watches. I mean, the Dodgers are the most watched team in baseball, and now we get to watch them all the time with those two guys. I just think the game is at a difficult stage, but I think the players and the agents make decisions, and sometimes, you know, you whiff and you don't get what you wanted. You've got to think about how do you fix it and how do you get with the club moving forward.
So I want to talk about one of the guys you drafted in 2002 with the Dodgers in the first round, James Loney, a very unique baseball player, Dan. When you look at him physically, big, strong, you know, cocky guy, when you watch him swing the bat, it's just line drives. I'm not putting the ball over the fence. I'm gap to gap, line to line. I could do a job with the bat. If you look at the first base position, I think we're starting to get back to guys like James Loney. Even my guy Tristan Casas in Boston gave me some flashes of Keith Hernandez. Mm-hmm. Like, it's been amazing to see the translation. Do you think of first base as a position to where I can find more 5-tool players playing the position going forward?
Justin, good question. I'm a pitching and defense guy. I always have been. For me, one of the positions that I think is neglected in the big leagues by some organizations, some general managers, they think anybody can just go play first base. And the problem is there's 3 guys in the infield who disagree with that. When you have a situation where you have elite defenders, you can get outs if your first baseman can finish plays.
Yep.
I think in Loney's case, when we selected him, it's a good example of what we talked about a little while ago, where we talked about the organization and your philosophy. Our scouting director, Logan White, who I hired, knew that I was a defense guy. I'm a pitching guy. You know, Justin, Dodger Stadium, after about 7:30 at night, the ball doesn't carry to the alleys. So as a result, runs are not plentiful the last 6 innings of the game. I wanted a guy who could pick it over there at first base, keep the ball in play. I think what we're seeing as a game is with the DH being universal, a lot of teams now are plugging in DHs and getting more to defense at the bag at first, simply because, I mean, I look back, and I'll give you an example. The Rockies a few years ago, and I don't really hold the Rockies in very high regard in their decision-making. And here's an example. They had Arenado at third, Story at short, LeMahieu at second. 3 Gold Glove candidates, 1 guy a Platinum Glove winner. And they take a guy, Ian Desmond, and put him over at first base, never played there his entire career. They replaced him with Daniel Murphy, who was a below average first baseman. So what you get is 3 elite defenders in the infield at altitude, and you put an inferior defender at first. To me, that's incongruent. What you have to do is, if you're going to be defensive oriented, you got to start in the infield behind the plate and not neglect first base or center field. The ball finds the guys who can't play, guys.
Exactly.
It's amazing how a poor defender shows up at the least opportune time. I don't like guys like that. I mean, I love guys who can hit, but if you can hit, at least play the field mediocre. Once you're not a mediocre defender, if the ball's handled a lot at your position, it can be a real problem for your ball club.
So you just before, because I don't even think we should be spending this much time on the Rockies. The one time they got it right, Dan, is when they went and got out and went to go get Mark Reynolds when he was coming off the bench playing first base for the Rockies. If you look at his effort that he was putting in at third and at first base, I can work with that. But if I got Ian Desmond, who's basically a wide receiver playing first base, what do you think's going to happen?
Yeah, and I love Ian. Ian's got great makeup. He was the Clemente Award winner. Fantastic guy, but miscast at first base. And you bring up a good point. You can put up with Reynolds' strikeouts if he's throwing the ball over the fence and he's playing a good defense.
Yes.
So I mean, Reynolds, for what he was, at about $2 million a year, was a real nice player for that ball club.
Yeah.
Dan, probably next show we're going to do our season predictions. I was curious, what team would be a dark horse for you in 2024?
I would say Cincinnati. I think the Reds have a chance to have a very high ceiling this year. I think Pittsburgh could do a resurgence. They were on the brink of it after the first 2 months last year, and their depth just wasn't there. Thinking it through a little bit more, I think Detroit's going to be improved. I think Detroit's going to be a better ball club. And I'm thinking if there's anybody else, I made some picks with a friend of mine 2 days ago. We do this every year. So let me see who I'm forgetting.
Seattle on there.
I like Seattle a lot. I think Seattle's a playoff team this year without a doubt.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I think they're going to be a real good club. The other team I have is Kansas City. I think Kansas City gets better this year. I think they win close to 80 games. And if you think about it, guys, that's a division where I think 83, 84 wins the Central in the American League. It's odd how the two Central divisions might have only one plus 500 team. I would not be surprised to see the Royals up there around Minnesota late in the year. I think they've made some real nice transactions this offseason, but I think the team to beat in baseball in 24, for me, are two clubs. It's the Dodgers and the Braves. And I think they are so powerful and so fun to watch that we're going to have a blast watching them play in 24. Whereas the American League, I wouldn't be surprised if there was only one team in the American League with 90 wins. I think it's going to be congested. I think there's going to be a lot of 82 to 90 win teams. And I think it's going to be a contrast of two incredibly different leagues, two super teams, and then an American League with a bunch of just decent ball clubs.
Junior, do you have anything left?
My question was going to be this. How do you balance, in your opinion, this old school mentality of baseball and the wave of analytics and the front office making more decisions in game on the field? How does one balance that? We're new school, old school, when obviously numbers have been around the whole time.
Yeah. Ozzy, I've spent my whole career trying to balance that. And to me, and I teach a class, Sports Management Worldwide. We've got 400 alums in the game. What I always tell everyone, and Ozzy, I'll tell you for free, okay? Your job is to get it right. That is your job. Your job, whether you're a player development guy, whether you're an analytics guy, whether you're a scout, whether you're the GM or the assistant GM, your job is to make your decisions correctly. How you rely on analytics and scouting, for me, it varies from player to player. I try to be consistent with the tools that I use. Sometimes the analytics sway me. We changed the dimensions of Comiskey Park before your dad showed up. And we did it based on analytics of balls to the warning track. But then some of our other decisions made, and the decisions I've made throughout my career, are based purely on scouting. So I think one of the problems in our sport today is that some people are very lopsided in their decision making. They're all analytics or they're all scouting. I don't know why you do that. Do you think Sam's Club, Walmart, any of the car dealerships, they're using gut feel, they're using sales ideas, they're using analytics. The great companies all use analytics, but they also use gut feel. I think the mistake some people make in this game is they think it has to be lopsided. For whatever philosophical reason they believe that, I actually believe the complete opposite. I want to blend the heck out of them, where the two staffs commingle and understand each other. And as a result, if the analytics staff finds an elite guy, of course, let's go. If the scout, an example, Buehrle. When we signed Buehrle, Mark was a 36th round draft pick. The analytics weren't blowing people away. We were using them. This is 25 years ago. But the scout, John Kazanis, Nathan Durst, had an incredible feel for the player. You got to trust the scouts, and you got to trust the analytics guys. And if you do, Oz, you come up with a really good blend of good decision making. I would hate to be in a situation where I could only rely on one side of things. I never have my entire career. I was Moneyball 15, 20 years before Moneyball. For me, why wouldn't you use all the resources that you wanted? I think about the Wiener Circle, one of my favorite places to eat in Chicago. You don't think the Wiener Circle knows at 2:00 in the morning how many char dogs they're going to sell versus burgers, and how many large fries they're going to sell? Of course they know. Any good business takes as much data and as much of their resources, combine it with gut feel, and they make good decisions. I'm just happy Wiener Circle at 2 a.m. always made good decisions about char dogs and char fries.
Never lost.
Never lost. Winner Circle is undefeated. Tell us a little bit, because obviously you mentioned the class, but tell us a little bit about the class in the program, because obviously I think it's extremely intriguing and something that is available now, which was not available 15, 20 years ago. It's available today, which is amazing.
Yeah, Ozzy, as you know, Roland Heeman was a big mentor in my life. A great man, passed about a year and a half ago. And he told me about 10 years ago, you got to start giving back. So I got together with Sports Management Worldwide, and I've been teaching a class, an online class that rotates every 8 weeks. So we teach it 7 times a year, where we talk about how to get into baseball and some strategies of the game, scouting, player development, and overall strategy of putting a roster together. Ozzy, we have over 400 people working in the game. Collegiate level, minor leagues, scouts, front office decision makers. It's one of the things I'm most proud of in my career, that there's this whole generation of decision makers that I remember when they were trying to get in. They were aspiring baseball people. And now through SMWW, we've got this collection of alums that are doing great things in the game. And for me, honestly, one of the most rewarding things in my career is seeing their careers on jet propulsion, remembering where they were at the beginning of the class.
Love it. Love it.
So, Dan, I have to be transparent with you. This has
Mhm.
been one of the greatest podcasts I've ever recorded. I've been recording shows for probably about 3 years. I try to record every day. This has been one of the best top five. Um, Now I have to go through. I saved my best question for last.
Yeah.
The 2003 Dodgers bullpen, according to Fangraphs, was rated the best bullpen in Major League Baseball history. When you were watching 7th, 8th, 9th inning, and Jim Tracy had to go up and hold up that right hand and signal to Mota, Gagne, Cal's dad, Paul, how confident were you in that time?
Well, Justin, first of all, I'm glad I got your Venmo account. Thanks for the kind words. That was good. There's an example, and we talked about this about 30 minutes ago, of the philosophy of the organization. When I came in, I wanted to shut down the back end of the game. For White Sox fans, if you remember the 90 Club, that was the beginning of me influencing the club a great deal. You think about Barry Jones, you think about Thiggy, you think about the guys at the end of the game in the 6th and 7th inning who had dominant stuff that could get out of situations. Think about Rad and some of the guys who were really special. That's what I brought to the Dodgers when I put together that bullpen. Gagne had been a starter. Quantrill was a sinker baller with a real durable arm and the best makeup of all time. My God, what a great guy. Jesse Orozco was in that bullpen. We traded one of our best prospects for Guillermo Mota, who had just an elite changeup. He was an up and down vertical pitcher, which I really believe in. I feel throw the fastball up, the changeup down. You're going to get a lot of guys to change their eye plane. But that was, Justin, one of the most rewarding seasons ever for me because it was exactly the game plan I anticipated. We had an aging starting rotation who weren't really innings guys. And I thought, you give me 15 to 18 outs and our pen will take the rest of it. But it's also consistent with Jim Tracy because I went to Jim and I said, Jim, this is how I see the game. What do you think? And he said, Danny, if I can get guys at the end of the game that can get a strikeout, get a pop out, keep the ball in the ballpark, I'm going to be all in. And Justin, the biggest thing in that one was taking a 5th starter in Gagne, who candidly the White Sox had drafted the previous or 2 previous years. When I was with, he was a draft and follow. So I knew all about his makeup. I knew all about him. And when I took the gig, I love Eric. And I said to Eric, Eric, you got to tell me why are we struggling in the rotation so much? And he just said, I just can't manage the game real well. I have trouble managing the game. Well, as Ozzie knows, that's not a problem. There are positions for that. You've got 7 or 8 bullpen guys. And if the guy just has to manage 15 to 20 pitches, 3 outs in today's game, he can do really well. And Eric said to me, Danny, I just don't know how to do it. And I said, well, I'm going to surround you with some guys who have done it. So Justin, Quantrill. You take Jesse Orozco, sitting in the bullpen, telling Gagne how to go about it, to me, completely by design. And when the guys at Fangraphs reached out to me late that year and said, do you realize this is like the greatest bullpen since World War II? And I said, well, just to be included in that group is great for our staff because it's our staff who helped me acquire this. Almost all those guys were trades or free agent signings or candidly position changes. So I'm really proud of that, Justin. But again, it's carrying out a strategy, a game plan. I love when the last 6 to 9 outs in the game are outs that I have a better chance of getting than you.
Yeah, you guys did a pretty good job. I just want to speak on Gagne for a second. All of our listeners, this is going to come off as a hot take. Eric Gagne has the best stuff of any closer that ever played the game. And I'll shut the book like that.
He's also one of the best dudes ever. We still stay in touch. I post things on Twitter or Instagram, and I get a DM almost immediately, sometimes sarcastic, sometimes fun. But Gagne is a great example of a failed starter who became the Cy Young Award winner in the bullpen. I'm really proud of him, and I love him as a person.
So, Dan, I got one last question, and we also do have two more in the chat before we wrap it up with you. My last question for you is, what is your case for Mark Buehrle to make it to Cooperstown?
Oh, man. First of all, Gonzo, I love your hat. That's super cool. That was the first team I was with the White Sox. The 81 club wore that uniform, and I just still get a kick out of it. Mark Buehrle for me is one of the most underrated guys, I think, in the modern era. To take the ball 32 times every year, give you 200 innings, give you an absolute machine on the mound, 80 command, a 90 competitor, a guy that the guys loved to play behind, but also a great teammate. For me, I think he's undervalued. I believe he's a borderline Hall of Famer. I really do. I think his number should be retired at Comiskey Park. To me, the heart and soul of the White Sox. And when I went to Toronto, having him with the Blue Jays, when we made the trade for him, I was elated because I knew exactly what we were going to get every fifth day. Now think about it, guys. How many people in the game take the slab every fifth day and you know exactly what you're going to get? You're going to get a great pace. Remember, we used to think 2 hours and 20 minutes was quick. Now it's pretty much the norm, right? But I think Buehrle should be a candidate. I think his stats are good enough. He's got 200 plus wins in this era. The era of a 300 game winner, they're gone. It's not going to happen anymore. I mean, look at Verlander, look at Kershaw. Those guys aren't going to get there. Sabathia was an elite pitcher. Sabathia didn't get there. So I think, when you think about today's starters, to use the plateau of 300 wins, I think that's flawed thinking. And I really believe, just knowing Mark like I do, that what he brought to the park was so special that I really believe he should be in consideration.
I say amen to all that because, I hope he makes it. I know a lot of the national writers don't see it in the same eye that we do, but for what you just said about the guy eating up the innings and all of his acclimates, I feel like he's got to be there. But we got two questions here. I'm going to post this one first with Juan Diego Montenegro. This is for you, Dan. It says, on that regards, I think this is, when we were talking about the MLB, how can we fix the go-to game experience money-wise? Right now, it's not affordable at all to a game for a family of four in baseball with its longest season.
Juan Diego, a great question. I experience it myself with some of the things that go on. I live in Denver, and there's things I'd like to do sometimes. And, I went to a Avalanche game last year, and my tickets were $243. And I just went, whoa, how many of these can I do? I went to a Chicks concert a couple of years ago, and God, I can't believe what I paid. I saw Britney Spears, and I went, oh my God, look what I'm paying for this. Movie tickets are expensive. I think it's part of who we are as a society now. I still think there's tickets at Comiskey Park that are affordable. It's in every ballpark, if you plan ahead. The secondary market saves me a lot when I'm traveling and I want to go do something. I use the secondary market to try to find a seat, and then I'll mingle and I'll find a better seat. Oh, I'm not supposed to say that during the game. But I think if anything, the casual fan, particularly a fan with family, that's a big investment. And I just remember what Michael Jordan said to me one day, which I'm not name dropping. He obviously played for the White Sox organization. And I said to Michael, what brings that competitive nature every moment of every game with you. And he gave me one of the most telling answers of all time, Gonzo. He said, Dan, there's a guy in the top row who's got his family, who saved up his money. This is their one game a year. I owe that family that effort, because for that family, this is their game. This is the only game they'll go to, and they'll talk about this game for the rest of their life, that they came and they saw me and us play. And, you know, MJ is a completely transparent guy once you get to know him. And I just said, wow. I said, well, that explains a lot. And he said, I just feel I owe it to that guy, because the season ticket holders, you know, I mean, they're going to be there. But those people that sprinkle in throughout the stands, I've got to give them everything I've got. And later, I spoke with Bruce Springsteen. I had a great chance to spend about 3 hours with him one day. And Bruce Springsteen's the greatest entertainer I've ever seen. And I just said to Bruce, how do you bring that energy? And he said to me, you know, there's some guy who bought that ticket 6-7 months ago, and he went into his bank account to get that seat. I got to bring it for that guy, because that guy's never going to come back. And I don't want him to look at me someday and go, you cheated me out of a $200 ticket. So Juan, I understand what you're going through. I mean, I was thrilled to see Oppenheimer win last night. I went and saw Oppenheimer at a 10 o'clock movie with Kathy, probably, I don't know, in the middle of the summertime. And we were like, you know, we're really short on cash right now. And we said, no, we got to go see this movie. It's supposed to be great. And watching it win 7 Academy Awards last night, I went, all right, you know, between the popcorn, the drinks, the movie tickets, we probably spent $80, but we sure as heck got a great movie out of it.
Absolutely. Our last question of the night here is from Mazman, and it is, what are your thoughts on Trevor Bauer and if he would be good for a clubhouse? I was thinking Kopech would be a good closer, and if so, we may need another starter. And just to add to that, I mean, we just had Clevenger a year ago, and he was the best arm in the rotation last year. So, I mean, looks like from what I saw, Bauer topped off at 99 in that outing this past weekend. So,
yeah, he would never be on my club. It would never happen. Too much stuff, too much baggage. I think the uniform's a privilege, not a right. And there's just too many shadows, you know, and you're allowed to make decisions like this as an organization. But for me, were I leading an organization, after what I've heard, what I've seen, there's no way he would play for my ball club. And I have no problem with that at all. I think we all have boundaries. We all have decisions. And, you know, I can sleep perfectly well at night knowing that he would never play on my club. Now, I will say there was a point in his career where I would have taken him on my team. But knowing what I know now, no, he does not. He doesn't even enter the mix. And Gonzo, when you talk about stuff, you talk about touching, you know, the mid to upper 90s, it doesn't even get there for me. I just don't care. There's a reason why the Dodgers, who are trying to win every single game and had, you know, almost $100 million into him, why they walked away. And I would not engage on that. And I know there's people who would disagree with that. I'm totally good with that. Regarding Kopech, you know, first of all, I'm happy he's healthy because he has electric stuff. And let's just think back, you know, sometimes it's really quick to judge a trade, right? If Kopech comes back and Kopech becomes the guy you think he might become, think about what that does for that deal. That deal gets even better, okay? So I'm just happy he's healthy. We don't know what they know about his medicals. Maybe closing doesn't work for him. But I'll tell you what, he'll have more value as an elite starter than he will as a closer on an inferior team. So I think if I were him, I'd try to squeeze all the juice out to make him a starting pitcher, because I'd let somebody else make him a closer. I'd like to have him on the mound every fifth day because that rotation right now is not deep enough to take him out of the rotation and put him at the end of the game. He's not going to get enough chances to merit that position switch.
So in regards to Michael Kopech, I'm glad you guys brought it up because the Phillies got a guy named Matt Strom who they use as an opener. He pitches 2 to 3, even sometimes 3 innings out of the bullpen, and he's very effective. When I look at Michael Kopech, even though I want him to be a starting pitcher, I think at a certain point, if you want to maximize how much production you could get, maybe mixing in a couple of relief appearances down the stretch, because if you look, we won't have a problem with him starting games up until the All-Star break. It's coming when the mileage starts to pile up. How are you gonna get some of that tread off the tires without taking him off the mound? That's just a tricky thing. Like the Royals had to do it with Danny Duffy when he came up too.
Yeah. Well, guys, arms like that are so hard to find. It was great scouting by the White Sox to acquire him in that trade. I mean, that is an elite arm. His injury history, that happens, guys. It just happens. It's part of the game. And if you ignore that part of the game, you're not being realistic. Justin, maybe the opener type thing is something to think about. The great part of our game, there's 30 different ways of doing it. There's 400 different ways of doing it at the collegiate level. And I think sometimes we forget that there's no right or wrong in personnel decision-making. It's just being consistent about your philosophy. If this is what you think he is, if you think he's a closer, well, then he probably doesn't fit for you long-term. If you think he's a starter, man, I would do everything I could to get him. Because if you take him out of that rotation, just think about that rotation without a healthy Kopech. You're betting on Soroka being healthy. It's a difficult thing to push your chips in on a guy if the guy doesn't have a history that indicates that he can be that guy. I'd love to see him come back.
Dan, you've been stellar tonight. Just been completely sincere with us and all of your answers and giving us complete depth on everything that we've talked about tonight. Before we let you go, I want you to at least let our listeners, know where we can find you on socials. And also, do you have anything coming up on your career side of it right now that you want to share with us at all?
Well, right now I'm trying to figure out what my next career move's going to be. And it's really a fun time for me, very candidly. I think by the end of the month, I'll have a good feel. And it's a kind of an exciting time and, a little anxious time, but I'm enjoying it. I've got some great options on the table. But I want to put a little plug in for Saber. And Gonzo, you and I went back and forth today. As Ozzie Jr. knows, his dad came, and I'm grateful for it, and spoke to our Saber convention last year in Chicago. Saber is one of the most fun things I've ever been a part of. It's the Society of American Baseball Research. We talk about the history of the game, trends in the game, some of the cool stuff in the game. We got over 40 committees. And yeah, there's a bunch of stat nerds too, but it's a bunch of baseball nerds. Oz, you remember, your dad fit in great in that group.
Oh, I loved it.
All right. It's a blast. It's a great group. And throughout the world, we have over 80 chapters. And Gonzo, I am so lucky I'm on the board of directors. And I'm the first GM ever to be on it. And I love it. For me, I get to be a nerd. I get to be with my people. There's some people who, are funky about uniforms, ballparks, team nicknames, Negro leagues. Well, bring it on. Baseball cards. I love all that kind of stuff. There's other things I don't like, but others do. I'm on every social platform, Gonzo. As you can see on the screen, I'm at Dan Evans 108. That's the number of stitches in a baseball. So I'm on IG. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Threads. I'm everywhere, and I'm on LinkedIn very strong as an influencer. I just encourage you, if you're a baseball person, you want to you want to connect with me, I won't let you down. I'm pretty darn fun on social media, and I'm anything but boring, as people know who know me. I'm just not a boring human being. So I might piss you off once in a while, but I'll aggravate you because I'm taking a stand on something that I firmly believe in.
Well, Dan, again, thank you for everything tonight, joining us, giving us more than the time that you even offered us. But we really appreciate you. And at any time you can join us on the Blackout, dip your feet in with us, and have a great time talking baseball.
Well, I'd love to come back, and next time I'll wear my Tiburones cap to make Junior feel well. And I do owe my dog an apology because I told her I'd be walking her about 40 minutes ago, and now she's walking around with both legs crossed on the hind and front. And I'm like, all right, sweetie, I love you. I'll get you out there. Don't worry about it.
Go walk your dog, and thank you for being with us on the show. I'm just glad everybody gets to see and talk to you. Something that I've had the privilege to do my whole life. And obviously now they can find you in the platforms of class, because those are the best things that people ask me. What's the best thing about growing up Guillen is having access to people like Dan Evans. And now because of the world that we live in, more people get to share that stuff that I grew up with, and obviously never take for granted. So thank you so much for being on the show with us today. And I told you guys, real baseball here, Dan Evans.
You didn't lie.
That's super kind. I told you guys. You asked great questions, so thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate you. All right, guys. Wow, the time just flies by.
I told you guys, and I'm not going to say it right here. He's saying he's looking for another gig. Chris Getz called Dan up. Nobody knows the makeup of this organization like Dan does. He is a guy that's lived the old school, was a guy that was there before analytics was a thing, is a fan of the game itself, and he gets it. He gets it from the fans' perspective, the alignment of organization, what it takes to build. If I was a general manager of any team ever, if I was given, they say, Ozzy, you're in charge tomorrow, even if Ozzy Guillen got a job and they said, hey, you get to bring in X number of people to your staff or way to help you out, he's always on top of the list, because it's just, and people always just see like the top, obviously his biggest titles, but it's like 35 plus years of working in the game of baseball, that his knowledge of just access and being able to consult and give you that perspective as a general manager, that's just, you can't change that experience. So,
I'm not gonna lie, OJ, like, his philosophy in baseball goes hand in hand with mine, because my favorite thing to do outside of watching somebody hit a ball over the fence, I like watching first baseman turn 3-6-3 double plays, right? Do you know how unique your roster has to be for you to successfully draft a guy like James Loney in the first round and it work out? Like, do you know how cold you gotta be?
But that's called depth, and that's where I understand. And I love how he answered the Bauer question, because even though me and Dan might disagree on that question, on like how I would build my team, is that he has a firm. I always believe you have to have a firm line of what you believe or don't believe, or what you're okay with building with your team. And he said, I can go to bed at night and I'm okay with not making that decisions. Guys like that, guys like my father, guys in the game like Bruce Bochy, Terry Francona's of the world, Tommy Lasorda's, they all have in common, they all have different styles. But everyone that was successful is they have a line of, this is what I want, this is what I don't want. I don't dabble in the way that I build a team. So if you're a general manager, and this is something that he said, that a manager and a general manager have to be on the same page, as if Pedro's not going to play rookie players, Chris has to be okay with that. It has to be a philosophy, and that's okay. That's your plan. Whatever your plan is going to be, you got to go with it. But I'm from a believer that if I inherit a team, I'm going to talk about the White Sox right now. And I know Andrew Vaughn gets hated because he gets compared to like the Frank Thomases of the world. But if I have Andrew Vaughn on my team and his defense is average, potentially could become a plus defense, and I can add those offensive numbers elsewhere, then I'll add those offensive numbers elsewhere. We're stuck with this belief that production has to come from the first base position. I'd rather a guy who hit 25 doubles, 30 doubles, than hit like 120 and just hit the home runs and then be a defensive problem. I love the fact that players can play multiple, like can defend themselves with the glove and get on base. Guys that are multifaceted. Yes, I do love guys like David Ortiz that, can just hit bombs, but there's only so many David Ortizes. So am I going to try to build my team every single time like that? Me personally, no. But if that's how your team is going to be better and what you have in your farm system, that's great. But I believe that a team, and that's when we're talking about identity, is what's the identity. And I think that right now it's a joke. We say, oh, they'll get the Kansas City Royals. But I think if Chris Getz gets a positive out of this offseason going into the season, is that I think his front office moves are actually, they're pretty good moves. The people that he brought in around him, regardless of what people think in that world of like judging front office people, he's got solid names around him. Again, we can't judge a front office till a couple years later, but I think that their plan, like Dan said, is completely different than what we think the plan might be, because they might just be testing it out and saying, hey, we don't have to win, this year. If we win 75 games, we're doing better. We're looking for development. So I that's what I like what Dan shared of. We got to stop looking at the wins and losses, but like, what are the small wins for the White Sox? This whole relation with the bullpen. That's the type of knowledge that I think that, that we look for the in-depth of both worlds working together. That's the key, I think, for any team, any organization moving forward. I loved it. I was just writing notes. Again, it's no secret. I'm advising for the team in winter ball, Tiburones, on how to build. And that's exactly the first thing I said was, my job is to help you guys bring analytics, and we have an analyticals department and a guy that's amazing at it, and combine it with Ozzie Guillen's old school baseball. And when we're signing players and building players and the players that we're trying to bring across, those are the types of guys we're trying to find. And that's the cross. I don't like being put in a box. So I hate when people say like, oh, analytics, new school, old school. I hate when you just know what the move's going to be. You got to like think deep and kind of use it. And I love the fact that he mentioned it, because we always give him grief for it. He used Moneyball before there was a movie made out. People think that Moneyball started with Billy. Well, Billy just made it. Billy had success with it, and obviously they made a movie of it. But before Billy, there were people that used it to a degree that maybe didn't have success like Billy did because of the big players that Billy had to move. But there were people in the baseball world using it already. And it makes you think like, wow, analytics have been around for a while. Nobody was just not marketing them. And that's when you talk about like a fit. Going back to the 05 White Sox, AJ Brzezinski had been a winner. Jermaine Dye had been a winner. Those moves were really, really well thought out when they made those moves, because they're like, we need to make a lineup fit Ozzy's style. And that's why I think that your general manager, whoever the player is, has to get to that point about, again, analytics, feel. And that's what the White Sox should do, man, with Brian Ramos, with Montgomery, with Colas, with the guys in the future of, hey, is this guy going to be here for the long run, or do we move him? Is he a reliever, a starter? Even what he just talked about, again, I'm ranting, but the Crochet situation. I feel like that's a Crochet and Kopech fall into that situation like Eric Gagne. Are you a starter? Like, why can't you start? Have they had that sit down with them? Like, do you hate starting? And if they say, yeah, man, I feel really uncomfortable, I'm better off, just worrying about 20 pitches, regardless of his talent level. And if you want to make him a starter so bad, move him to the pen. Let him develop there and go find yourself another pitcher in the draft or via trade. But you really have those human conversations with your players.
One of the things I wanted to emphasize on that he said at the end was talk about Michael Kopech, keeping him a starter, because I'm kind of at that point where I want to see him in the bullpen. And I was kind of a little bit shocked by what he said. Considering like you see it lately in this past week, he's still not finding the plate at all, and I just it's hard to have faith at this point.
The plate situation, and again, at Kopech, I've heard both philosophies. He has an arm that can be a starter arm. I think it might be a mental thing. He's going to throw balls coming out of the bullpen too. So if it's a control issue, that's a whole different ballgame than him. It usually is like, oh, his velocity's down, he can't get the outs. I'm going to be honest, man, with the Kopech thing, I think it's like what Dan talked about. It's let's have an eye-to-eye conversation. Let's try to simplify, like, why are you not throwing strike? Is it mechanical? Is it a mental situation? Is it something that can be fixed by you potentially being in the bullpen. I think this team is in a predicament of they're in a situation where they can test stuff out. Okay, and he mentioned a team that everybody's sleeping on. The Kansas City Royals.
No.
They're not bad. I saw Micah Garcia play third base every day. There's no better defensive third baseman in the American League than Micah Garcia defensively. Kansas City Royals. He's just not famous with like Bobby Witt. He could play some good third base.
Better than Jose? Better than
Jose who?
Ramirez.
Yes. Right now, yes.
Better
and
than
you know
Brandon.
how? Yes. Right now, yes. Right now. Right now. 4 years ago, I would have said no. But today, I'm talking about just defensively. I just think there's a couple of players in that team that are going to be better. So that team's going to be better than I think people think. I think, in my opinion, personally, I think Kansas City is going to be better improved than the Tigers. People think the Tigers are going to be so improved. I think Kansas City is going to be a bigger improvement than the Tigers.
Well, you could.
I'm not saying they're going to be better than him. I'm not saying that Kansas City is going to be higher in the standings. I'm saying
no, but rate of growth,
rate of growth. I don't think the Tigers are going to grow that much.
The only reason I agree with OJ with what he's saying is because the Tigers don't have a Bobby Witt.
They don't.
They don't have a Bobby Witt at all. So at a certain point, he raises the ceiling of everybody because if you take into account what he does, he has enough power to supplant in the lineup. He has enough speed to create runs. He has enough defense to take the pressure off of outfielders who don't know what it means when an infielder's back is to the home plate. Like, he takes the pressure off of every level of the organization just by lacing his cleats up. Detroit doesn't have a player like that. They don't.
So again, I think obviously you guys always know that I'm big on Cleveland, but I think that when we're talking about that growth, I think that I was not surprised that he mentioned that team. I was very surprised that he mentioned his concerns about the White Sox. I thought they were going to be a little bit more upside. But with that being said, I think that a guy in the question mark is Dominic Fletcher. KC don't have the rotation talent and depth they have. I think KC's rotation is, by the way, the White Sox are counting on the White Sox rotation with Cease being there the rest of the year. You take Dylan Cease out of the White Sox rotation, it's the KC rotation. You take Dylan Cease out, and it becomes the same rotation as Kansas City. Just take Cease out. The White Sox only pitcher that has done well in Major League Baseball, and I repeat, in Major League Baseball, is called Dylan Cease. The young man that's coming over from Asia played in South Korea, not Japan. South Korea.
But Juan's talking about Detroit's rotation.
Well, Detroit's rotation is the same thing. They're not all those rotations. You take Cease out. Let's take Cleveland out of the mix. So Cleveland has a couple good pitchers. Like they got a big name pitcher on there. All the rotations, if you take out Cease out of the rotation, all the American League Central, that's why they're only going to win the division with 83, 84 wins. It's because everyone's rotation is weak. Which again, if we're going to talk about being, let's keep it real. Let's say Ozzie Guillen gets named manager to the Chicago White Sox. We're telling them to sign every top pitcher, starting pitcher possible. Why? Because it's only 83, 84 wins because the pitching staff is weak in the American League Central. Look at the pitching staff in the American League Central. Does any team's pitching staff scare you?
I mean, outside of Detroit with Screwball, Reese Olsen, like they just got a bunch of good average guys.
They got guys that have potential to be great. They don't have a bunch of.
Nobody scares you. Nobody
is coming in. I'm talking about they're not a rotation that when you come in, you say, wow, they got 3 guys that are like 17 game winners with like an ERA of like under a 4 3 years in a row. Nobody in the American League Central has a dominant pitching staff where you say, oh my God, this pitching staff's legit. Like Minnesota's last year, they had a couple guys with names.
They lost Sonny Gray. He's gone.
They lost Sonny Gray again.
Yeah, I would still put both Detroit and Cleveland's rotation pretty solidified rotations.
Solidified in the what point though? Meaning they have potential to be amazing names. They don't have none of those guys finish in the top 3, 4 Cy Young pitching. Detroit they're trending up in pitching starting wise.
I was gonna say where's Scuba was up there last year.
Come on, dog.
Top 3 finishing in the Cy Young in the American League.
No, but he was up there in the list though.
He made top 10.
How
top
many?
10.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
I'll
think
tell
he
you.
was.
Top 10.
Okay, Gonzo, how many teams would Tarek Skubal be a number one on? Not many. Probably Washington.
Would you put Terry Skubal in the same group as Cease?
No.
As an ace, yeah, I'd put him up there.
How?
No, I'm just saying
It's
he's
his
got the
stuff that he's
potential.
already showed.
I mean,
He
but
just has to
stuff.
keep. He just has to get another year.
Yeah, but still, you got to think about it. Tariq Skubal has never put it together for a full calendar. In order to be an ace, you have to put multiple. You have
But
at
the
least
reason,
Dylan.
I get Justin's point. The reason I got to give Dylan Cease the benefit of the doubt is that he's 3 years removed from a top 2 Cy Young finish. So he's the only guy that, like, potential wise, I'm like, he's done it before. That's why when you build a name like that,
But I
like,
brought
you've
it up
done it
already.
before.
This is a guy that's
Well, that-
shown it. I said I've already brought that up already to begin the show. Because Cease has been one of 8 pitchers to throw 200 strikeouts the last 3 years. It's not just one season.
Well,
We're talking about
200
Skubal.
By the way,
Mhm.
again, this is where you get analytical, Gonzo. Strikeouts do not mean pitcher success. You can throw 200 strikeouts and still get your tits lit and walk the house. That's why when you
No,
pitching
I
people, they
I
get upset.
disagree on that.
What do you mean you
How?
disagree?
You
How
just
do you
seen Blake
disagree?
Snell
One
win
of
a Cy
the
Young?
one of the main
Hold on,
jobs
hold
as a
on.
pitcher.
You
One of the main jobs as a
hold on,
pitcher is to get outs.
Yeah, and what happened before you got those outs? You just gave up 5 bombs or walked the house. Strikeouts have no correlation.
All right, but
It
defense
helps
affects
you.
the ERA too.
Yeah, but no. You can't
Because
talk
you have a
like,
guy
oh, the
like
guys-
you got a guy like Strider that had a 3.5 ERA on a hell of a team in Atlanta. 3.5.
A 3.5
And he had
ERA.
damn
That's
near
good.
275 strikeouts.
Correct. That's an ace.
That's
A 3
your
ERA.
runner up.
Correct. What's Terry Skubal's ERA last year? Terry Skubal's, what was his ERA?
Let's go.
280 in 15 games.
15 games, okay? Again, potential. When he has a 280 in a 32 start season, okay, then I'll say, wow, he is a legit ace.
In 21 starts, in 22, he had 3.5 ERA. In a career high where he made 29 starts in 2021 at his healthiest, he was a 4.3 ERA, Gonzo.
You said
It's
when we
not the
first entered
same
the
running.
league?
It's not the same running a half marathon than running a full marathon.
I don't think Tarek Skubal has showed enough outside of just optical stuff to put him in the conversation as an ace. Being the number one pitcher on Detroit, just like Dylan Cease being the number one pitcher on Chicago. I mean, you could be a number one and not be an ace. A number one is where you slot in the rotation. An ace is what you do.
So 200 strikeouts, again, 200 strikeouts plus is awesome. But it does not make you like, oh, 200 strikeouts, this guy's going to be the future.
But if
That means nothing.
see where my difference of that is if you're showing that consecutively, there's a difference there. Because again, he's one of 8 pitchers. These 8 pitchers are your Garrett Coles, your Nolas, your Wheelers. These are guys that have shown consistent success has put them above
Yeah, but
your arms
okay.
in baseball.
I just want to say this real quick. I
Not
just want to say
potential,
this.
it's
I just want to
consistent.
say this real quick. Gonzo, Dylan Cease strikes out a lot of batters, but his pitch count is elevated every start. You're okay with living with that because the Nolas, the Zach
That's
Wheelers,
just the age of baseball today.
No, because you can't sit here and say Garrett Cole, Aaron Nola are on the same level in regards to efficiency as Dylan Cease. Those two are way more efficient pitchers than Dylan Cease. They get more value with their strikeouts than Dylan Cease does.
We need to start winning more games, and this is the way that I see it. I judge the Rapsodo statistics, okay, and I also judge the pitchability because I don't care what your strikeout rate is if you are not efficient when you are pitching. In my opinion, an ace, again, my opinion of an ace is someone that can put all of that together for 32 starts in consecutive years. A potential to be an ace, okay, is someone that is showing that trend. This year, if Dylan does not show that trend that he was finish up the top 3, he will still be a good pitcher, but the word ace might fall off in the title that I give him because, again, an ace does not mean how much money you make, because there's a lot of people out there that are aces because how much money a team gave them. What the Rapsodo showed, you just told me, Trevor Bauer threw 99 miles per hour. There's 1,000 Dominicans that can throw 1,000 miles per hour, but they can't throw a strike. So Michael Kopech, for example, if he doesn't find the strike zone, no matter how hard he throws, he is going to be a guy that was a big leaguer that couldn't figure it out. And that's unfortunate. So when you have to have the makeup, you have to put it all together just like that. Just like when you're a prospect in the minor leagues, you have to go from AA or AAA and then go to the show and produce at the show level. Your potential means nothing at one point. Your potential gets you there and gives you the opportunity, but you have to produce at the big league level. That's all that matters. And we see with guys like that, Jose Altuve shared it the other day about everyone in Houston told him that he wasn't going to make it. Well, he produced against all odds and he made it. Mark Buehrle, again, you look at the numbers and you're like, this guy's, numbers are horrible. Freddie Garcia, we were laughing the other day, his horizontal vertical wouldn't even gotten him signed at the age of 15 when he did, because his ball wasn't moving enough. There's numbers that you can win on the Rapsodo and the analytics part that are going to give you a potential to read that. All that stuff is great, but you have to perform at the level. This is why it's different. We're talking about Michael Kopech in 2024 than we were in 2018 and 2019, where people came to the stadium to watch him come out of the game, and it was raining and it was a blackout, and people were going nuts because his numbers on his pitching potential had him in the trajectory to be, a Justin Verlander, like lights out. Oh my God, this guy's a show. Time's passed, and now people forget that. For this pitcher for the Tigers, he is in his up potential. This year, I have him as a candidate to be in those numbers. The reason that I think that their starting rotation is good, but it's not like, oh my God, it's so much better, is because the Sox still have C's. You take C's from the Sox, the Tigers' rotation is obviously that much better. But after him, I don't see the Tigers I don't see them having him 4 times.
Well, I want to, because we're going to get to season predictions next show. Let's just put a pause on this whole AL Central battle.
Well,
putting a pause.
Cleveland is taking it.
No, they're not.
Pause. Damn it. Jesus Christ.
Hold on. Let me show you guys. I took this bet.
Let me see.
I don't care about your bet. We're putting a pause on this.
No, it's on FanDuel, and I did it. It wasn't about the White Sox, but I did it. It was late at night, and I didn't want to do it before the show. And I don't even know this is going to be my pick, but I was just like thinking. I was like, what numbers? And I was just looking at odds, legitimately just looking at odds.
I'm looking at them.
No, I'm check. Hold on. I'm going to find out to make sure that I gave you the right one, that I got the right bet in. Oh, so looking at odds wise, again, not even looking at anything. The Phillies. I took the Phillies.
I can't see that. Let me see that.
The Phillies, legitimately.
Squint.
Phillies to do what?
I put the Phillies, so it's like plus 1,500, and I was like, I like the number so much. I literally just sat there and said, what odds look amazing, like a team that actually has a chance to like win it with like odds that are really high. And I was like, oh, the Phillies, like they gotta be legit. Like they're gonna be like, so it's like, again, I don't even know. I my head, top of my head, I don't think their starting staff's like strong enough, but I just took it based on the odds, like 15 plus 1,500 to win it all, the division, the whole run. I did that.
That's tough. AL East.
It is going to be tough because obviously the Braves are there and whatnot. By the way, we got to do a show. Now that we're doing this, we literally have to go in and really analyze starting rotations across the American League Central.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot you said at the end of that discussion I agreed with, but because for me, it just based off what your term is. For me, my term is different than your term with ace because my separator is elite arm.
And that's fine.
Ace.
I'm going to be honest with you, though. Right? The White Sox need to keep their eye on Tim Anderson. If Tim Anderson goes to the Marlins and goes off and like figures something out and becomes a better player than he was when he was with the Sox, then we're going to have a huge player development conversation. Because they have Berger, like everybody that leaves the White Sox, I'm thinking now, like, how are they developing? I'm just being completely like, if Cease leaves the Sox now and goes and like turns into like this just out of this world freaking pitcher, like just Cole in the Cy Young years, like those guys did, then you're like, okay, do we have the right personnel? What are we doing wrong? Why are these guys going elsewhere and like blowing up and becoming like, fantastic? Like, let's say they traded Colas, and then a year from now, 2 years from now, we see Oscar Colas like
Not gonna happen.
Probably not, but I'm just saying though that's concerning. You wouldn't be concerned if are you really going to put the simple answer as, oh, Tim Anderson changed scenarios, so he's good now? You're really going to put? No, I'm not either. But that's what everybody's going to say. Oh, no more baby mama problems. Oh, he's in Miami. He's happy. He's playing better. I'm not doing that. That's too simple. That's way too simple. I'm going to give you guys we have a guy on the roster, and we can talk about predictions on the 40-man roster, and he's going to get a lot of playing time. And he was developing perfect where he was in Arizona, and his name is Dominic Fletcher. Okay.
Yeah.
So his development continues because he was developing very nicely in Arizona. Again, we're going back to the development part of the White Sox because I've come to this theory that when players come to the White Sox, they stay who they are. Like Cease is still the same guy that we brought from the Cubs. Moncada is still the same guy that we drafted in the trade. Kopech still the same guy. Like none of them have developed into becoming better. That's just my philosophy on it.
Yeah, we'll get to our predictions next show, but I want to wrap up this, at least the spring training here, because by the time we come on the show, it's going to be over with, and season's going to be starting.
Mustaka's making the team, Gonzo? Mustaka's making the team?
No, I see him being in AAA.
No,
really?
You that salty over Brian Ramos? Now Moose can't make the team?
No,
but I'm saying you signed Moustakas, and you know all the connections that he has to KC, the Kansas City Mafia, and you're going to tell me that they're going to put Moustakas in AAA?
Yeah.
I think one of those guys there's somebody who's going to get axed for Moustakas.
Because I think Danny Mendick is going to be the one that's going to take that role.
I'm going to be honest with you guys. How about this one? Do you guys think the Young should be the everyday shortstop? Just hand it over to him?
No.
I think him and Mendick should battle it out.
Yep. Because I was going to say, OJ, look at Paul DeYoung right now. He damn near could. I can guarantee he's good. There's going to be a stretch of the year he's going to be batting 180. If you're a slugging shortstop and you're batting 180 on a losing team.
Wait. Did you just say the word slugging?
Man, he hit a home run before.
Hold on. So you use the word slugging, Paul DeYoung, and shortstop in the same sentence. That's wild. He is not a slugging. If Paul DeYoung is a slugging shortstop, then
what's the best part of his game? What's the best part of his game?
You want me to be honest?
His power.
I'm going to be honest. I'm not. He's been in the big leagues for a long time. He's not a guy that taking the position every day. Is not a guy like if we had a Miguel Rojas where you're like, wow, elite defense. Elvis Andrews at one point, like, oh, this guy used to be great. When you bring an older player like that, which the Sox have done a lot of times, Royce Clayton, Valentin, like guys that have played the position or guys defensively that have been superstars. For him, it's just like, oh, it's a guy the White Sox picked out of a list that they might have just been like you could bring Alcides Escobar, and I would have been like, oh, it makes more sense. He was with them in Kansas City. I'm being honest. No, but I'm just the reason I'm saying this is this. I had Danny Mendick actually playing everyday second base last year because of what I had seen when he got hurt when he took over TA's position. I like Danny Mendick on the team, on the roster, and the way that he was, and he was a guy that did the little things, and I thought that his defense was actually pretty good, where he could at least be second or short. I still think that with his age, I still think that I would want them to give Danny the chance to battle it against DeYoung. Like, you just can't give DeYoung the job and be like, it's your job. Like, you're going to play no matter what. Like, I really want to see them give Danny Mendick the chance, because that way, Gonzo, then Danny Mendick definitely has a shot to make the team. By the way, we can compare the numbers, but I think Danny Mendick and DeYoung defensively they're pretty close.
I would prefer Danny Mendick at this point, because DeYoung got hamstring issues, quad issues, like he's starting to break down.
You said it, I did it. So like the Mendick, like Danny Mendick as a shortstop is not that crazy of an idea. It's not.
Yeah, before we get into pitching, though, let's take a look around the diamond. So Benintendi in left, Robert in center, right field. They're probably splitting it with
No,
Fletcher
it's Big Fletch.
and Pilar probably too. And then
Quick question.
infield. Yeah, go ahead.
What would you guys do? This is going to be a dilemma. Again, they didn't sign this contract because it was before their time. When Dominic Fletcher has better numbers than Benintendi.
You know what, OJ? I'm going to be completely honest. We was doing the American League preview on the Bad Guy Radio, and I said, don't be surprised if Dominic Fletcher's numbers are better than Benintendi's this year.
I'm just saying because if Pilar goes off, they're very close. They're lucky that Pilar is 35 and not 28. But I'm just saying, like, the Dominic Fletcher, the projections of what he has produced and the little time that he has, he's already better than him defensively.
Yes, younger than him.
Better than him. He's better than him defensively.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, hell yeah.
Yes. More speed. Okay. So if he keeps developing like he is, one guy's gonna be making 75 mil, the other guy's gonna be making I don't think he's gonna be making like 6 million. Like, so I just think that's gonna be interesting. But I think Dominic Fletcher is actually one of the guys that I could see here this team being like here in the next couple years if he keeps his development. I think he's a solid player.
I'm not sure if you saw it, OJ, but there's a guy on Twitter named of Eric that Justin knows really well that says that we're nuts for, holding accountability to Benintendi just because he has a big contract and potentially starting Fletcher in left field.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm going to be honest, man. If Pedro Grifol, if I was in Pedro Grifol's seat, okay, and I feel like I'm managing for my job because I'm not going to play prospects because F development, I'm not going to get guys prepared for the next guy to come. I'm going to get fired no matter what. I'm benching Benintendi. I'm benching anybody. I'm not just saying Andrew. I'm benching anybody I don't deem that it's going to help me win games. If their whole game is like, if their whole game plan is like, I'm not losing. Because again, let's be honest, Pedro Grifol's not only managing for the White Sox, he's managing for his future in baseball. Like, you get back-to-back 100 losing seasons, your chances of getting another managing shot are very slim to none. So again, I think that he wants to win. So if the team is better with Dominic, Pantera, and then Pilar in some of the matchups, then you keep Andrew on the bench. He already got paid, so he shouldn't care. Yeah. I think that again, that shouldn't. I don't think the decision should be affected.
Exactly, and go back to the discussion with Dan. I told him we can cut payroll down to 46 million next year. I don't give two rats about 16 million going to Benintendi when we have so much payroll to use going forward. Like, that is meaningless to me because it's all about your play on the field at this point.
Well, Andrew for 16 mil, like, let's say you do go and like you cut and you have him as like the big kind of like roster move that you have that I think if you're going to rebuild, and again, I'm talking about, I was like advising Chris myself. I'm like, don't think about Andrew's contract, the Benintendi contract. Like, if we have to build an outfield where Benintendi is the fourth outfielder or platoon guy, then we build if we're going to win. I don't want you to make him the left fielder just because he's of his price tag. Like, You can't do that. And I'm not saying you can't do that with anybody in any position. Let's say like, let's say like in the next prospect, like in the next, or you have the ability to make it via trade in the C's move, you have the ability to bring a top first baseman, but you don't do it because Andrew Vaughn's there. You're like, wait a minute. Yes, I'm bringing the best available players. We'll figure out, if someone's going to get knocked down. So I'm not going to be like, I'm going to take the sixth best guy because he fills a hole that I have. No, if the best guy they're giving me plays first base, then we're going to figure out what we're going to do with the other guy. But I'm taking the best player possible. I'm not going down roster lists because we have this position, so I'm not going to take him. It's like, you got another great center fielder, Pantera, you're moving to right. Like, I'm making moves, but I'm getting the best available players. If those trades are going to happen, I'm getting the best available players that can help me as soon as possible.
Yeah, and to wrap up the infield, Maldonado, Stassi, Vaughn, Sheets, Nicky Lopez second, shortstop. We've been talking Mendick and DeJong and third base, Moncada. Again, Mendick can play third too. To give Moncada an off day because he's going to need it.
He doesn't. No, he doesn't.
The back is going to flare up.
He's the most durable player on the roster right now.
He will not need a day off. His body will force him to have a day off. So let's not give guys days off because they're gonna. This is the thing. We gave guys days off before. We gave guys days off. They gave guys days off before, and they got hurt. So why not just play them all the time if they're gonna get hurt anyways?
Well, I'm telling you, when he gets hurt, we got someone.
By the way, correct. The Eloy
we got someone.
The 180.
He's in Double A.
Like 140 games. By the way, somebody was throwing out there saying 140 games. 100. I'm like, are you guys? 140 games? He will be in a wheelchair by the All-Star break. I'm being serious. That's a lot of games, guys. That's a lot of games for anybody. Right. I said if he plays 120 games, if you get 120 games from Moncada and Eloy at their healthiest, this team will be better.
Will be. And now let's quickly wrap up this pitching. We know Cease, Fetty. We talked about Kopech, Soroka. We talked about him. That fifth spot, I don't know about you guys, but Garrett Crochet's been on absolutely fired.
No.
Diming up the zone, Justin.
His 50 innings are going to be great.
That's what I'm saying. Like he's been great, Gonzo. Like
let me guess, Gonzo, you got Crochet as an ace. You got Eric Crochet as an ace.
No.
You got Eric Crochet on your list as a future ace.
Don't you?
Negative.
You don't. You don't? What do you have him as?
Negative.
In the Gonzo list, where's Eric Crochet?
Mid rotation.
That could be a 2. That could be a 2.
You got him at 2, don't you?
Huh?
You got him at a number 2, don't you?
At one time I did.
Wow. What was that, yesterday?
I said the potential.
So the potential. In your paper, in your lineup, you had Cease and Crochet as your 1-2 punch.
Potential 1-2 punch. Just like how I have Schultz
you had
up
the
there.
Weird kid, and then you had the Noah Schultz kid probably third.
I said the potential.
Oh.
So you don't think he could potentially be there?
Man. Crochet?
With this stuff, you don't think that he has the potential to be there?
You can have the
before injury. Before injury.
He got injured the first week he was in the big leagues. What do you mean before injury? He was injured in college.
Right. So let me ask you, where's your potential in Schultz?
On Noah?
Yeah.
Right now?
Yeah, right now. We're just talking
you're going to be in
potential.
a winning World Series team, he's got to be 3 or 4.
Which is what? Mid-rotation. Which is what I said.
By the time he gets to the big leagues, if Noah Schultz was that legit, he'd be in the big leagues right now. He's not Chris Sale. Chris Sale was in the minor leagues like 2 days and was like, I'm ready for the big leagues. Bobby Jenks, ready for the big leagues.
Well, let's be honest, though. Chris Sale probably could have been on that path if it wasn't for your dad saying, let's get this guy here.
Maybe.
I don't see that with this board. You think Pedro right now? You think Pedro's saying, let's get Schultz here right now?
It could be if he was good enough. If you're good enough, you got to force that hand. I don't think that he's good enough. To be, by the way, I'm talking about coming to the big leagues and being good, not getting your tits lit. I'm talking about being good. I'm talking about Don
Crochet's dotting up. Crochet's dotting up. Trout, Ward. He's dotting.
It's not hard. It's not hard to strike out Mike Trout.
Dude, are you talking about spring training? Otani was
That's the only thing we got to talk about. We're talking about playoffs.
But wait, are you talking about hitters' approaches in spring training, Gonzo? Those guys don't even know who's on the mound. They didn't even look at a report. They're going up there like, oh, what is this today? I'm getting my 2 at-bats, going up there and doing my.
Oh, by the way, he struck out Otani too.
Do you think Otani? I would love to see that matchup. I'm not saying that he can't. I'm not saying that he cannot not strike him out. I'm just saying that, first of all, he's injured again. Question marks. His coming back from an injury.
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming back from an injury. That means pitch limits. Okay, right. Inning limits. Let's do inning limits. So if you throw him in the starting rotation, you're gonna use him a lot quicker than not. So that's the first thing I need to decide: is he going to be a starter or a reliever? So if he's going to be a starter, might as well start preparing him that for now than in the future. Because
but that's why I said that's why I said have him in the 5 spot, because you got enough guys on the back end to spot starts with him.
In the 5th, 4th, after the 3rd. By the way, here's the thing: there's The kid from Atlanta, I think, might surprise a lot of people.
Schuster?
No, the guy who just came on the trade, the guy that said he wanted to make the White Sox the Braves. That hookah he was smoking was
Soroka.
Soroka. I want to make the White Sox the Braves. I said, son, yeah, okay. A little different over here in this side of town. So he'll be the number 3, like on paper, like, okay, we got that. Then you got the South Korean sensation, South Korean Cy Young.
Yeah.
He'll be the number 2.
Hey, imagine you said you want to make the White Sox. You want to make the White Sox the Braves, but you forgot to bring Acuna with you.
Yeah, well, Lars said the same thing, that he was tired of that the White Sox had been playing really bad for the last couple of years.
I feel like no one's been talking about Nastrini and Canyon, who have been on fire. They've been pitching their asses off. I know it's spring training. I know. So that's the only baseball we can talk about right now.
Give him a shot. Give him a shot. Give him a shot. Then give him a shot.
I think they're gonna play the front office approach with their options, and they're not. They're gonna set them down, then bring them back up in a couple months.
Tuki Tucson is not.
He's getting lit up right now.
I know. So I don't think he makes the rotation. So bring up one of these guys. Give him the shot to like show what they got. Again, huge win if one of those 2 guys pans out, because then that means that. Because here's the thing.
Because they sent your boy Davis down. They sent your boy Davis down to the minors.
I know. My boy Davis he's just dropped. Like he's dropped so far on that list.
And Eater.
Yeah. He's fallen down. He fell down. No, but here's the thing with those 2 guys that you just mentioned. Again, I'm not thinking contract wise. I'm not thinking about what money they're getting paid. I have them in the same line as the South Korean Cy Young. South Korean Cy Young is a guy that's coming in like those guys, in my opinion. Like, you just came from playing like in a foreign league. I don't know what you're going to bring. Again, we saw, and here's the part. Those guys have never gotten lit up. Fade, he might get to the big leagues, might get on the plane and remember that he's in the big leagues. And if you haven't seen what happened to him in Washington, YouTube it. Yeah. It's wild. It's like it's just a fiesta of just barrel. And people love exit velocity. Very, very fast exit velocities.
That ball hit deep, way back.
I got them in the same list. I got Nastrini, Fade, and those guys in the same those group. I got the kid from Atlanta a little bit higher because I think he was a prospect. So I got him he's got more potential. Meaning this season.
Soroka was the first pick.
Soroka, yeah. Soroka's I think if everything goes well for the White Sox, I think that he becomes. They potentially see him as a future 1-2 punch guy.
Yeah,
I think they're high up on him. And again, I like it. He's a Braves guy. I think that they really have him high, and I think he should be. Again, he's a high pick, but I think he could be a guy that no one really talks about. Again, if one of those 2 guys hits Nastrini or the other guy, I think that will be a huge add to the rotation. The White Sox rotation. I'm not worried about the White Sox rotation as much as I'm worried about the starting pitch, the relief pitching.
Yep.
The relief pitching is where I think is going to get scary.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. But guys, that wraps it up with our interview with Dan, our spring training wrap. Let's do shout outs. Justin, send us the way.
So this one's kind of personal for me. I have to give a shout out to 2 people. My girlfriend Asia and Ryan Poles. They absolutely beat it into my skull that there is no way to move forward than picking Caleb Williams. We have to pick Caleb Williams. My girlfriend and Ryan Poles did an outstanding job making sure that the picture was clear. Like, I had to take my fan goggles off. It's time for me to get my team back to the NFC title game. And to Poles and Asia's credit, I was very stubborn, but they were patient with me. And I just want to tell you guys that I see the vision now. I understand. I'm ready for Caleb's crusade. So thank you, Asia, and thank you, Ryan Poles.
I don't even know. It's going to be funny because there's going to be people rooting against Caleb when he gets on the team.
That's the awful part.
Talk about a development problem. You want to talk about a development problem? You better hope he's very ready because they're not going to develop him very well. So you're going to back up 3 years of him learning. It's this guy's a junior. It's going to take him 3 years to catch up where Justin Fields is at mentally, to catch up to the NFL. NFL, not like college. I hang out and there's little guys running around in my division. It's called the NFL. It's called the learning curve. Again, prospect world in minor league baseball and in college, that is called prospect. That is called potential. Heisman Trophy is like getting minor league player of the year. It doesn't mean NFL.
I think if I'm gonna be honest with you, OJ, if the Bears draft Caleb Williams, he won't see a season under 500 in a Bears uniform if they draft him. He won't.
I hope so.
But I don't understand how, like, we as Bears fans, we've been itching for a franchise quarterback, but each time that we draft a quarterback, the last 3 drafts, we start booing him right away, not even giving him a shot. Trubisky, Fields, and then we'll see with Caleb. There's already going to be half the fan base that's going to be booing him.
I'm not going to disagree with you there. I didn't like Justin from the beginning just because he was an Ohio State player, but he actually grew on me and said, this guy can actually play. And I said, if you're going to be bad, at least this guy's fun to watch. And Mitch, I could have told you that. My unborn daughter could have told you that when they saw him. That guy, yeah, that's probably why he got fired. That guy was like, talk about making a bad move. It's like, ooh, I'm going to go get wild. This is a part where you're talking about GMing. If you sign Dylan Cease and he doesn't make it, like, man, you went and you signed Dylan Cease. Like, you went and signed a top guy, like Ohtani. Like, if Ohtani sucks, it's like, man, nobody saw that one coming. Or like an injury. But if you go and like try to like get like smart and do like an Andrew Benintendi, like or you go and sign like you go Brian Ramos, and like I'm gonna give Brian Ramos $100 million because I'm gonna get him on the cheap, and he doesn't pan out. That's when you get in trouble. Like the Oscar Cola, it's like you try to get someone on the cheap and then you give money to someone that's not proven. That's how you get fired. You don't get fired for giving someone like Cease, Justin Fields, like Caleb. Like if he comes. Like Caleb, if he's the number 1 pick and he's a bust, anybody in the NFL would have taken him 1. So it's like, hey, he was supposed to be the guy. Everybody said he was going to be the guy. Rich Trubisky was not the guy in anybody's book. So that's why you should have gotten fired for that. So that's what that'll give you that much. But I'm going to be honest with you. I told you, Caleb's going to be after the fan base is not going to like him.
I'll let you have next on shoutouts, Junior.
I'm going to shout out to Crochet for striking out Ohtani, probably the highlight of spring training.
You gotta be kidding me.
It's March 11th, and we still have Pedro having to talk about the importance of moving the runner over and hitting with runners in scoring position. Don't know if fast did not work very well, if they need to get people to translate what the acronym means, but they've been saying all the right things, but on the field, they have not been going well. There's a couple guys on the White Sox that got their first hit in spring training for the first time a couple days ago. They have not looked great in spring training, meaning not talking about wins and losses, but like moving the runner, just in general. So there's been some things that have the offensive side has not looked as good as the pitching. The pitching has actually shown some. So I'll give a shout out to that. To the highlight of spring training has been Eric Crochet striking out Ohtani. If that was the real Ohtani, it could have been a double for all we know. When you're that popular and famous, you might have a double. So the fans can come out and see you at all times. You guys, my only shout out is Gonzo. Ozzie Sr. made the videos, okay, because the Guillen's World Twitter page is actually technically the Twitter page for all of our channels. So technically the Guillen Grid, the Blackout Show that lives in the Guillen's World. So Ozzie, I told him about we don't believe in managers. So he made a video. He's going to ask for the vote. His video says, if you don't vote for Ozzie, vote Guillen. If you don't, you might get blocked.
Damn.
Just threw it out there because Ozzie loves blocking. Ozzie, I think people don't realize Ozzie's a blocker. You see Ozzie Ozzie, there's something that you said in the sentence that he doesn't like. People think it's all about him. No, it's about like if you say like Nancy Foss played a horrible song one time in the stadium, block. I like Nancy. So his block count is up there. It's like at almost 5,000 blocks.
Who do you have in the tournament? Who are you going up against?
I got Herb. Yeah. My boy
This
Herb.
is-
The only knock I got against him, and I give him, that's why I always call him out, is that he told me that managers didn't matter at one point. It's a long time ago. Managers don't matter. And I said,
He said he
really?
came on BGR. What was that? A year and a half, probably 2 years ago, when we had that conversation. I still couldn't believe what I heard.
But then he called out Tony La Russa every day, and I said, I thought managers don't matter. I don't care if you believe managers don't matter. The paychecks were real. So if you're like fake managing, I don't care. As long as your team's winning or losing, you're still getting paid. That's it. But if you don't believe in managers, I can't come out here and say, I don't believe in managers, and then I'm calling Pedro out. If I don't believe in managers, then I don't believe in. You could have me, you, or Gonzo managing. Ain't gonna make no difference. We love that you're still chatting with Trevor. So yeah. Hopefully, I got a win. I got the Venezuelans. They're gonna come out to vote. Hopefully. So yeah. So when the 108 tourney, Gonzo's the one guiding me. I guess I got to share the page, and then they got to vote for me. So I'm going to be out there like.
We'll work on this when we wrap the show up.
Yeah, probably doing some unethical things to get votes. Like trying to get. I'm just saying, hey, if it's an election, you got to do what you got to do, right? Here's the thing, I'm like, we don't care, but then
American
you don't want to lose
election.
in the first round. I'm saying no, you don't care. You say you don't care, but then you're like, I don't want to lose in the first round. But then once you advance the first round, you're like, I can go, I can run the table on this.
I just want us to be the underdog because I'm not sure, Junior, if you looked, but if you beat Herb, you go up against Sean. It's the CHGO fucking tree.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it's like us versus CH8. Oh,
it's us versus CHGO.
I gotta make a post about my softer side so I can get those votes.
Oh my God!
I gotta send a couple softer tweets.
And Gonzo wants to go political. Like if we use the slogan "Make America again," I don't think that's gonna fucking go.
That's not gonna go great. By the way, I thought about that. I said, "Make the White Sox great again." I was like, but that's not gonna fly very well.
Not this fan base. Not this.
You know what's funny though that you mentioned that, and I was actually talking to somebody about this the one thing about the 108 tourney that I think is really cool, and this is I've not seen any other fan base, is that there's like a little flavor or taste for everybody out there, okay? And it's like you see your news and your information through whatever eyeglass you want to hear it, and you got to see it. So people always get like, oh, this is your perspective, and obviously everyone's influence has on the show. You can take it, but when you look at the 108 tourney, there's guys that are like, that are more quirky, that are more left-winging views, more right-wing views, guys that are more hardcore. There's some people that are completely off the reservation, some just really hardcore radicals. So I feel like you can get your White Sox news. So like if you are coming to watch the Blackout Show, okay, and you're looking for a certain type of message, you're probably not going to get it here. Even though it's like much like that we're not going to sit here. There's certain things that we're not going to approach here. And we're going to give you the shot. Again, like for us, I'll give you the one right now with Dan. Dan came on and said that he wouldn't have Bauer on his team. When we let him have his thing. Like if I went on another show and I said that I would sign Bauer, like when I did the Yasiel Puig, which I was trendy at one point, I said, I think I'd give Yasiel Puig a shot. I got, my wife was like, man, I didn't know you hated women that much. I said, I didn't know either. Just because people were like, you horrible human being. You want Yasiel Puig on our team. I said, I just said invite the guy to spring training. Like you probably would have been cut already at this point. I was just like, bring him to spring training. How bad could it be? You lose 100 games anyway. So might as well just, try to find a diamond in the rough. Again, so this 108 tourney is a good exposure for everybody to go out there, see who the White Sox fans are. And, hopefully we advance one round. It'll be nice.
I didn't even go look at the polls today. I've been so focused on the.
What do you mean polls? Like, is it open? Is it open yet?
Justin, did you see any polls? I feel like free agency blew up today.
No, I think the polls start tomorrow, the 12th.
I feel like I need to take a picture next to a toilet, take my shirt off, and like do like a fake funnel. Like I feel like I gotta do something like that to like attract White Sox fans. But that's just not me.
You have to build on your creativity through the tournament. You'll get there.
That's what I thought. Yeah. That girl, Allie White, my dad, Ozzy, sent a message for her a while back because she actually has a funny story. She's Ozzy every time he would go to the Dominic's. Is it
No,
Dominic's?
it's a Jewel. It was a Jewel.
Jewel. It was like she's her, and she was like one day after like a while, she's like, "Hey, I'm Allie White from Twitter," and I said, "Oh." Like, and that's why Ozzy made the video because he would literally see her every day.
That's cool as fuck.
And then I used to tell her every day, Javi Baez is better than Tim Anderson. We both lost that battle.
Yeah. That's
right now. Tim's looking way better on the upside. No, but that's how she got the shout out from Ozzy the year that she won. So I knew that she was like building up. So I'm kind of aware. But yeah, so I hope that I win at least one round.
We're going crazy tomorrow. That's all I know.
Yeah, we got.
I'm on a mission.
You know, Gonzo would have loved for me to go up against Vinny the first one. He would have loved that. Gonzo would have had me here dancing and like doing dances and like songwriting. Had Jerry send a message out just to get, you know.
I plead the fifth.
I thought about some funny stuff, man. I thought about getting Paco Martin. Hi, you guys might not know me. I'm Paco Martin. Hope for my guy Ozzy. Just find the most obscure White Sox player possible. And again, it's
the day Danny Mendick started shortstop. The Paco Martin cameo.
Hey, by the way, I'm getting on that Danny Mendick train. I had him starting second base. At least Danny Mendick, who's not from Chicago.
Yeah.
We got from Naperville.
My shout outs. Shout out my one only, Soraya. She's on the class, the grades, the grind. She's studying right now for her physics. It's a brutal stretch here. Yeah.
What's she going to school for physics?
She's redoing some undergrad classes before she reapplies to vet school.
Physics? Damn. Oh, med school. That's why physics is important.
Vet school, yeah.
Your doctor's being important is a good thing. By the way, shout out to everybody who's been on the show. 663 accounts right now from what I'm looking at. I don't know if that's wrong.
And to add to that, I got to shout out Dan Evans. Hell of an interview. Hell of a man there. I can't wait to get him back.
Oh my God. One of the best fucking shows.
Justin, why do you think I was so good at baseball, Justin? You think I just got all my knowledge from Ozzy Guillen? No.
Hey.
OJ was at a young age taking that baseball acumen from Dan.
I'm just saying though, you grow up around people like that. It's like, you know, like there's from people that were around. There's like a couple GMs. It's just
you just absorbed it.
Just absorbed it. You gotta at least learn something. At least not even. I like my favorite thing about Dan is though that he's a baseball fan. Like he's number one. He's a baseball fan. He loves giving back to that young core of people that now it's more normal, like how to figure out how you get into the game of baseball. But back when he started helping people, you didn't even know, man. Like you didn't even know, like there was like no LinkedIn. People would just show up to like winter meetings. There was like no associations, nothing. Now it's like it's more organized, and Dan's been a pioneer of that. From the Rolling Hemans, obviously, from that school, from that branch when I went to scout school. But these are guys that do great things for the game of baseball. They're like in the background that no one ever, might never find out about. But yeah, he's one of the best guys in the game.
One last shout out for our viewers. You're going to hear a lot of Blackout Show fantasy baseball because we created a league and we filled it with 12 teams. And we already have a draft order. But besides that, I'm going to shout out our 12 teams because this is going to be one hell of a fun-ass year. For one, Caleb from Bad Guy Radio is joining us. One of my best friends growing up, David Sabelo, is joining us. Eric Martinez, who was in the chat, or actually, no, he was texting our group chat. He's a coworker. Jonathan Neal, another Bad Guy Radio guy that Justin brought in. Jonathan Moran, another coworker.
So you're using government names. Just don't say Justin for me. Say Targaryen. All right.
Josh Foote, another coworker. Juan Montenegro, he made it on the list. He has joined us in the league, supporting Venezuela with OJ.
Oh, hey, Juan, don't be sucking on the fantasy saying you represent Venezuela. We're both like 11th and 12th place. Get it together. Well, I thought about why not doing a show about the White Sox in Spanish. People are like, what do you guys like? Why would you want a show about such a bad team all the way in Venezuela? I was like, this is horrible. Why would you want this mystery? Hey, so it's a 12-team league, and obviously there's money involved.
Yeah,
$50
buy-in.
By the way, he wanted to do a keeper league so he can draft Brian Ramos in the first round. You're not going to do that, right? First round pick, Ozzy's going to be like, I'll take Brian Ramos just so I can hold him hostage from Gonzo.
For Kyle Tucker or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got Justin, KG, Kevin joined us as well. OJ, you're involved. And last but not least, Nate DeLuzak from New Lenox joined.
Did you
as
say
well.
Nate the loser?
Oh man, you and Nate
It's
are
a
going to go
head-to-head.
at it.
So explain out. So it's a head-to-head.
I'm pretty sure that's what you said. Nate the loser from New Lenox.
Who won the football one?
My
Gonzo-
uncle.
His
My
uncle
uncle.
did.
My
Uncle
uncle.
won.
He beat me in the championship.
Yeah, Gonzo tried to rig that league. Gonzo, there was like I was supposed to be in the playoffs, and like next thing I know, Gonzo made it, but I didn't. As if
You were last place.
And I wasn't last place. No, I wasn't.
You
I
were
almost
second
made
to
it at
last.
the end. There was like a rigged thing there. I was like, wait, I thought I was gonna make the playoffs. It was Gonzo. So that's not gonna happen in this league.
No.
Baseball's a whole different game.
Hey,
I already said it. I already
Caleb.
said it.
We got Caleb as the co-commissioner, so that's worse. That's like Rob Manfred and Roger Goodell in the same body.
Right now, don't be using that stupid app to try to tell me, hey, this trade is fair. I'm trading these three.
Oh no.
No, I'm just telling this right now. Don't come to me and say, oh, I'm gonna trade like the best pitcher in the game for like these 4 prospects because this league just told me. Not doing that. Not doing that. I will shut that down when we got to vote for trades. Getting over here and saying like, oh, I'm trading like Nicky Lopez, Benintendi, and like Brian Ramos and Colson Montgomery for like Garrett Cole on a Cy Young year because the app's telling me that's a good trade. I'll be like, no,
you might lose that trade. He get an MRI. He's getting an MRI.
OJ,
he does. I saw the Yankee fan crying.
Fortunately for you, there's no fantasy app out there that gives values for major league or minor league players. So,
well, there you go. We get started that one run there. I mean, so you can always know if a trade's fair or not. But that app's just wild, man. That app's just like
I'm just letting you know that I was already offered a trade in fantasy in our league for draft picks already.
What are we picking?
You didn't see the draft order?
Is it a snake draft?
Yeah.
Sound like we're drafting with snakes.
Wait, so it's a snake draft. First person picks, then you get the last guy picks first.
Yeah.
Last, and then
Mm-hmm.
But then the minor league draft, it goes in reverse. So
I'm gonna be safe to stay out here. You can call me Dave Dombrowski. I could care less about my minor league system. I will burn my minor league system for a championship. I will trade all my top prospects. I am trying to win as quickly as possible.
Did you see where you're drafting, Junior?
What?
Did you see where you're drafting?
No, I don't. That's what I'm saying. We're trading draft picks. I don't even know. Honestly, I don't know if I have the first round pick. I'm gonna trade it.
All right. So the order. I'm going third.
Oh, shocker.
I got 8.
Justin has 8, and you're actually neck and neck. Junior's 9.
I like that. 8 and 9. I like that. That's a good spot.
I'll just draft whatever position you go.
If you mess up a third pick, Gonzo, you're in the first top 5 picks, especially the top 3 picks, and you pick a bust, I will ride you the whole year of like, man, you just literally wasted your first pick and the third pick of the whole year.
Because you gotta think, bro. The first 2 picks will be out of the way. You'll have a concrete decision on best player available at 3.
Well, correct. You know, Justin,
I think my same player has always been the same one. I found the last 5 years in anywhere that I pick, my first player has always been the same guy.
My boy is going 1. 9 is 2.
Brian Ramos.
So you know that 9 is probably going to go Soto. So it's going to go 1 Soto me.
Wait, no, the first person's going to pick one he doesn't like Soto?
So Acuna, Soto, Gonzo, basically.
Cunha ain't even going to be ready for opening day, I don't think.
Wait, let these people do them. OJ.
I agree. I agree. Gonzo's going to come up with some. Gonzo, I cannot wait for your first pick. You're going to give me some BS weird pitch. I cannot wait.
I'm not gonna lie. Though once the news came out about Acuna's knees, do you know what the first thing I did in another dynasty league that me and Caleb are in? I traded for Corbin Carroll because at a certain point, the guy who King Mac has Ronald Acuna, Aaron Judge, and Mike Trout, he has no future in the outfield. It would have been terrible for me to allow him to get Corbin Carroll when he absolutely needed him. So you know what? I overpaid for Corbin Carroll just so somebody who's going to need him in 2 months can't have him.
I like it. So you're the third pick. My guy's going to be there. Jose Ramirez is up there. I've drafted him a couple years in a row. He'll be in the tribe. He might be I've gone with look at him last. You don't win in the first pick. 7, 6, that's where it gets dangerous. But first pick, that's where it's going to be. You're going to have some interesting picks, though. Eloy, I think, is going to be a dark horse pick. I'm being serious. I think Eloy can produce to that level. I think that he might be this year. He might be a guy that puts up the numbers. If he stays healthy, I mean, early in the season, like April, if he comes out of spring training, he's one of the hottest hitters in spring training. So if we care, I have a question, though. So here's a part that's funny. Okay. So White Sox fans care about a pitcher's performance in spring training because he struck out Ohtani. But the fact that Eloy is doing good in spring training don't count.
He's batting 480 right now.
He changed his stance. Marcus Thames got him good. I hope he hangs out with Marcus. If he listens to Marcus Thames, his life will be better. Marcus Thames is a real deal.
Yeah, he's a professional, and I know we're about to sign off, but I just want to touch on Marcus Thames a little bit because he's one of my type of guys. Like, he's a role player. He's a right-handed bat just built to plug in a lineup and produce. Just do what right-handed hitters do. Remember when Detroit had Craig Monroe and Marcus Thames in the same lineup with Brandon Inge? Like, those are not all-star level right-handed hitters, but they were able to get the job done because they were professional every day. Marcus Thames is teaching Eloy every time he gets into the box, you're not only dangerous, but you're professional too.
He has a really good career so far as a hitting coach, big league level. He's worked with some great guys. So I think that from what I've heard, from what I've seen, I'm biased. I like Marcus Thames even before he was a hitting coach. I like him as a player. I love him as a person. He's a great, awesome dude off the field. I think that he gets it. Been in the big leagues, can help a guy become a better big leaguer. He knows the analytics. He knows the old school approach. I'm a big Marcus Thames guy, regardless of what this offense is going to do, because I know he's going to start getting blamed for a lot. But Marcus Thames is a great guy. So if he gets a guy like Eloy back, it reminds me of that when Chili Davis worked with Baez and had Baez have that freaking ridiculous season. Some guys can click that way. Again, if Eloy figures it out, again, Eloy, Moncada. I like Eloy because I've seen already more improvement already. The different stands on the plate, the way that he's attacking the ball, especially the ball inside. So I think he might be, again, we're talking fantasy. I think he might be a sleeper pick, a pick that's not even going to be considered a top pick, but I can see him doing some damage early in the year because obviously he's going to be healthy.
Well, on that note, from Junior, from Justin, from Gonzo, thank you for watching the Blackout.
Gracias.